Chapter 2583. Looking from afar, one could see a black figure standing in the sky. It was hundreds of meters tall, and its whole body was surging with killing intent. It was suffused with a monstrous smell of blood. It was holding a broken, blood-red war flag. The war flag was unfurled, and a scarlet sun, moon, and stars appeared, shaking the sky. With a wave of its hand, some martial emperors who couldn't escape were swept into the blood-red war flag. Their bodies instantly collapsed, decayed, and turned into ashes. Looking at the blood-red war flag, it was as if it had swallowed a great tonic. It was suffused with an incomparably demonic scarlet luster, and it dyed the world red. This was a killing field, a forbidden area belonging to a progenitor realm evil spirit. Outsiders were not allowed to enter. It didn't take long for this place to quiet down. The black figure opened its mouth, and the blood-red war flag turned into a rainbow light that swept into its body. Then, the black figure's body turned into rolling mist and disappeared in a huge mountain. Isn't it too strong? Uduccio, who saw all of this, couldn't help but gasp. His expression was extremely solemn. An evil spirit wielding a demonic weapon slaughtered the martial emperors. Rumor has it that the evil spirits hibernating in the ruins of the Great Path are formed from the corpses of the powerhouses of the Last Era. The Last Era was destroyed, but these corpses were not destroyed. It can be imagined how terrifying these powerhouses were when they were alive, Xiang Xiaoyuan said. And these corpses have mutated over the countless years, and they have become this kind of evil spirit that is neither human nor ghost. After that, she frowned. Brother Lin, according to the guidance of the secret map, we must pass through the mountain range where the ancestral realm evil spirit is hiding if we want to arrive at that place of fortune. There's a spatial door there, and only by entering it will we be able to continue forward. Lin Sun thought about it and said directly, I will open the way, and the two of you can help me. This, Xiang Xiaoyuan and Uduccio were stunned. Don't forget that I was besieged by 3 old progenitors a few days ago, and I was still fine, Lin Sun said, and he was already rushing towards the mountain. Forget it. We will do as Brother Lin said. When the time comes, if the situation is not good, we will use our trump card immediately. Xiang Xiaoyuan's eyes flashed with determination. Uduccio nodded. The mountain ridge was huge and filled with black evil mist. However, at the same time, it also exuded an incomparably dense aura of the Great Path. It was like a treasured land of the Great Path that was covered by evil mist. Occasionally, one could even see numerous miraculous and rare herbs rooted within the cracks between the rocks of the mountain range. They flickered with bright light and flowed with the radiance of the Tao, causing them to seem extremely alluring. Those emperors were clearly attracted by these old herbs, but in the end, they drew out a progenitor realm evil spirit instead. There was no doubt that the evil ancestor realm evil spirit was the overlord of this area. Unlike ordinary evil spirits, its strength was extremely formidable. When Lin Sun approached, boom! After a series of earth-shattering rumbles, the black evil spirit appeared once again, holding a blood-red flag in its hand. But at this moment, when it saw Lin Sun approach, this evil spirit seemed to shudder with fear, and it felt as if it was being stared at by a god. It felt icy cold from head to toe, and its entire body felt ghastly cold. This had never happened before. Stop! What was extremely rare was that this ancestor realm evil spirit actually spoke. His voice was dry and cold, and it seemed as if it came from the netherworld. Killing intent roiled all over its body, and it was suffused with a terrifying might that blotted out the sky and covered the sun, especially the blood-red flag in its hand. Even though it was damaged, it emitted an aura that could destroy the heavens and the earth. Indistinctly, there was the sound of a powerful army and the roars of gods and demons coming out from it. Lin Sun's black eyes were deep as he lightly uttered 2 words. Get out of the way. Clang. The abyssal sword cauldron appeared and hung above Lin Sun, and it flowed with a myriad of lights that bathed his tall figure within it. The evil ancestor realm evil spirit was silent, Its body that was thousands of meters tall flowed with terrifying bloody light. Its might became even more terrifying, but in the depths of its heart, it was filled with a wisp of inexplicable fear. It had been dormant here for countless years, and it had seen countless challengers enter, and it had even devoured many figures that boasted of being extraordinary. But it was still the first time that it felt a fatal threat. The person in the distance came through the void. His body was thin, and his black hair was loose. His eyes were deep, and he flew like an immortal. But that slender body seemed to contain the power to refine the universe, and it caused the evil ancestor realm evil spirit to feel waves of terror. At this moment, Lin Sun seemed to be tranquil and peaceful, and he seemed to be carefree and aloof, but he gave it an extremely great pressure. This was too unusual. At the same time, Lin Sun also noticed that something was wrong with the evil ancestor realm evil spirit, and he couldn't help but raise his brows. He signaled Xiang Xiaoyuan and Yu Duqiu beside him not to make a move. Only then did he say, "What are you afraid of? You are from Netherworld?" The evil ancestor realm evil spirit was silent for a moment before it spoke. A wisp of a strange expression appeared in Lin Sun's black eyes. Could it be that the evil ancestor realm evil spirit instinctively felt danger because of the power of the Netherworld that I control? Yes, Lin Sun nodded. Xiang Xiaoyuan and Yu Duqiu were stunned, and then they realized that Lin Sun was very likely deceiving it. But who would have thought that the evil ancestor realm evil spirit would let out an icy cold roar in the next moment? The Netherworld has been destroyed, and the Netherworld no longer exists. You still want to deceive me? I won't forgive you. Boom! He waved the bloody flag and charged towards Lin Sun. At this moment, the heaven and earth seemed to be covered by a terrifying scarlet bloody light, and the sun, moon, and stars appeared. All of them seemed to have been soaked in blood, and they rumbled as they enveloped Lin Sun and the others, seeming to want to draw them all into it. Lin Sun and the others had already seen that kind of power before, so they didn't dare to be careless. Lin Sun suddenly activated the abyssal sword cauldron, and it emitted a bright light that set off a boundless rain of the Great Way as he charged over. He didn't dare to be careless, and he used all his means. After all, this was an evil spirit comparable to an emperor ancestor, and it was extremely terrifying. Boom! For a time, the abyssal sword cauldron glowed, and the bloody flag fluttered furiously. It was as if two worlds were colliding. One was scarlet and bloody, and the other was surging with a murderous aura. The other was flowing with the Great Way, and the universe was fluctuating, and it gave rise to many unbelievable phenomena. In the fierce battle, Lin Sun couldn't help but be moved. The power of this evil ancestor realm evil spirit wasn't ordinary terrifying, and it was 30% stronger than Wen Taolu, especially that broken bloody flag. It was obviously an unbelievable treasure that was filled with strands of immortal aura. Xiang Xiaoyuan and Yu Duqiu were watching over the battle, and they didn't make a move at the first possible moment. They were waiting for an opportunity to kill. But when they saw Lin Sun go head-on against such an evil ancestor realm evil spirit with his own strength, they were extremely shocked. This guy was really too ferocious. Suddenly, Lin Sun let out a long howl while the imposing aura around him changed abruptly. Numerous great Tao diagrams suddenly floated up into appearance around him, and they respectively represented the mirror of Sin Tao's book of life and death. The Sea of Misery that represented the Sea of Misery and Oblivion Tao. The mandala that represented the Fire Illumination Tao. The Black Prison Mountain that represented the Confinement Tao. It represented an entire 10 types of inconceivable great Tao diagrams interweaved together to form the 10 paths of hell, and they floated around Lin Sun. They caused Lin Sun to seem like an emperor of the Netherworld that exercised power over life and death, and he judged the order of the 6 paths. Bang! In an instant, an unbelievable scene appeared. The bloody and baleful aura that covered the sky seemed as if it had encountered its natural bane, and it was easily crushed and incinerated into nothingness. When the energy of the 10 paths of hell collided with the blood-red flag, the latter even droned violently, and it seemed as if it was being suppressed by a shapeless force and was on the verge of being shackled. At this moment, the evil ancestor realm, evil spirit, roared with shock and fury. 10 paths of hell. How could this be possible? The era was annihilated, the netherworld ceased to exist, and the order of samsara was destroyed a long time ago. Why has this energy from the netherworld appeared once more? The roar shook the heavens and the earth, and it was filled with shock, rage, and terror. On the other hand, Lin Sun finally determined that the energy of the netherworld great Tao that he possessed innately countered the energy of these evil spirits. His black eyes glowed as he charged forward explosively, and he utilized the netherworld Tao to control the abyssal sword cauldron. Bang! At this moment, Lin Sun seemed to reveal an all-powerful might, and he crushed all the attacks of the evil ancestor realm evil spirit and blasted them apart inch by inch. This scene caused Xiang Xiaoyuan and Yuduchio to be unable to help but be dumbstruck. This transformation was too great, and it caused them to feel disbelief. Is this still an evil ancestor realm, evil spirit? Why is it suppressed by Lin Sun to the point it can't even raise its head? On the other hand, Lin Sun wantonly displayed the netherworld Tao that he possessed. Soul Reaper Tao, Purgatory Tao, 10 Paths of Hell, Judgment Tao, Calamity Tao, Evil Tao, an entire 6 netherworld great Taos, and all of them possessed different might and miraculous effects. They were rarely utilized in the past, but at this moment, when dealing with the evil ancestor realm evil spirit, they erupted with unparalleled might. Judgment. Suddenly, the abyssal sword flashed out, and it was filled with an obscure and indescribably fierce aura of judgment. It was like the descent of heavenly punishment as it slashed through the void. Puff! The evil ancestor realm evil spirit's figure of hundreds of meters was directly slashed apart, and it released surging mist. No! It let out a shrill and terrified howl, and it fiercely tossed out the blood-red war flag in its hand and pierced it towards Lin Sun. This was like a desperate attack, and it was boundlessly terrifying. Purgatory! Lin Sun raised his hand and beckoned, and the great Tao laws condensed into the scene of 18 levels of purgatory. Every level of purgatory surged with a different aura of refinement, and they appeared in the void. It was like the legendary 18 levels of hell were reflected in the world, and it was shocking. Bang! The blood-red war flag had just charged over when it was suppressed in the purgatory, and it was enveloped by the terrifying netherworld purgatory fire as it wailed violently. Although the evil ancestor realm evil spirit's body was slashed apart, it didn't die, and it condensed once more. However, it seemed to be in complete despair at this moment, and it turned around with the intention of fleeing. Right at this moment, Lin Sun flicked his sleeve. Evil Tao. Boom. The endless light of the great Tao transformed into a monstrous black flame that covered the sky and the earth, and it instantly drowned the evil ancestor realm evil spirit. The way of evil Tao was the most mysterious, and it was condensed to the extreme. The divine fire that was condensed from it was specialized in destroying all evil spirits and sins. In the shocked gazes of Xiang Xiaoyuan and Yuduchio, they saw the body of the evil ancestor realm evil spirit being incinerated continuously, and it became more and more blurred and illusory. In a flash, it was completely incinerated, and it disappeared in a puff of smoke. That was an evil ancestor realm evil spirit, but it actually didn't have the strength to struggle, and it was killed by Lin Sun in an absolutely stable manner. Xiang Xiaoyuan and Yuduchio couldn't help but gasp, and they were shocked by this scene. P.S. Goldfish has decided that after this weekend, next Monday, there will be a big explosion of more than 5 and less than 10 chapters. Let's wait and see how many there will be at that time. Chapter 2584. Clang! A deafening wail resounded. After the progenitor realm evil spirit was completely killed, the blood-red flag it left behind was completely suppressed. At the same time, a pearl the size of a pigeon egg fell into Lin Sun's palm. This was the bead of containing Tao, left behind by the progenitor realm evil spirit. It contained the essence of its cultivation. In fact, all the Emperor evil spirits distributed in the ruins of the Great Path would leave behind such a pearl after they were killed. For cultivators, this pearl contained the miraculous power of the Great Path from the last era. It was extremely magical, and refining it could improve one's attainments in the Great Path. The value of this pearl was extremely shocking, and it was not inferior to the underworld pearl. The bead of containing Tao in Lin Sun's hand was naturally rarer and more precious. It was far more precious than the bead of containing Tao of the Emperor evil spirits. After putting away the bead of containing Tao, Lin Sun's gaze fell on the blood-red flag. After looking at it carefully, Lin Sun could not help but be moved. This was actually a treasure from the last era called the Sun-Moon flag. The flag opened up a world of stars within it. During battle, the flag would flutter like a world of stars, and it could wrap around the opponent, suppress it, and completely refine them. The more enemies it refined, the stronger the power of this treasure. It could be said to be monstrous. Unfortunately, the treasure was damaged, and the flag was also riddled with holes. Its power was sharply reduced. The only commendable thing was that the divine materials used to refine this treasure contained traces of immortal substance. Lin Sun directly threw the treasure into the abyssal sword cauldron. Now, he already knew that the abyssal sword cauldron was completely different from ordinary emperor weapons. It could withstand and absorb the power of immortal substance, and thus achieve a subtle transformation. Lin Sun was naturally happy to see this. "Brother Lin, are you really from the netherworld?" At this moment, Euducio flew over on a huge yellow-skinned gourd, and his face was full of surprise. "What do you think?" Lin Sun asked. "Similar to similar. It's also the nemesis of evil spirits and souls." Euducio stroked his chin, and his expression was deep. Xiang Xiaoyuan could not help but laugh. "All right, we should go." She could also see that Lin Sun had a lot of mysteries, but she consciously did not ask. Who doesn't have some secrets? The three of them continued moving, and in next to no time, they found a spatial door that was concealed within the mist within the enormous mountain ridge where the ancestor realm evil spirit lay dormant. It's here. Entering it is equivalent to entering the forbidden area where the fortuitous encounter is buried. According to my father's experiences from all those years ago, it won't be a peaceful journey. As Xiang Xiaoyun spoke, she withdrew a jade-green flying knife that was fine like a willow leaf with a flip of her hand, and it droned as it floated before her while emanating strands of sharp and terrifying azure-colored lightning that were extremely terrifying. Qingyi Lightning Blade. It was Xiang Xiaoyuan's prime emperor weapon. "Rise." Euducio waved his hand, and the yellow-skinned bottle gourd under his feet flew up. It spun around and suddenly turned into the size of a palm. Then it floated in the center of his palm. The mouth of the bottle gourd emitted a primal aura. Lin Sun also took out the abyssal sword cauldron. Then the three of them walked into the door. Not long after they left, whoosh, a small scarlet snake that was as thick as a chopstick appeared in the middle of the huge mountain. Hiss! A wisp of surprise suffused the scarlet eyes of the little snake, and then it instantly vanished into thin air. After a short moment, in the depths of a forbidden area, a mysterious mist rose from an ancient well, and the roar of a fiend god could be faintly heard from the depths of the well, causing one's heart to palpitate. At the side of the ancient well, a sword was stabbed diagonally, and the blade of the sword was tainted with blood. Every time the fiend god's roar resounded, the blade of the sword would slightly tremble and emit an extremely murderous sword cry, as if it was carrying out a deterrence to some sort of terrifying existence in the depths of the ancient well. Swoosh! The scarlet snake that was as thick as a chopstick appeared. It first glanced fearfully at the bloody sword that was stabbed diagonally at the side of the ancient well, and then it swiftly sent out an obscure voice transmission. "My emperor, King Fei Tuo's body and consciousness have been killed. A wave of shocking black mist suddenly rose from the ancient well, and an icy, cold voice faintly sounded out. Fei Tuo has been guarding the entrance to the Tai, celestial land, for countless years, and no mishaps have occurred to him. How could he have been killed? The voice was simply like a bone-piercing divine sword that rumbled. The little blood-red snake was terrified to the point of shivering. The Tai celestial land contains a mark left behind by the destruction of the fortuitous encounter. We absolutely can't allow anyone to seize it away. Otherwise, even if we escape, we'll be unable to attain rebirth from this state that's neither human nor ghost. The icy cold and bone-piercing voice resounded once more from within the ancient well. The little blood-red snake couldn't help but say, "My Emperor, I'll gather the other god generals right now and head to the Tai celestial land to kill the murderer that killed King Fei Ta." Wait! The icy cold voice resounded from within the ancient well. "Lead 5 god generals over and guard the entrance to the Tai celestial land. If that cultivator that killed Fei Tuo is really capable of removing the era mark, then all of you can seize it from him." The little blood-red snake was first stunned, and then it lay prostrate on the ground and praised. "My Emperor is wise." Clang! A wave of boundlessly murderous sword howls resounded, and then a wave of muffled groans of pain instantly resounded from the depths of the ancient well. At the same time, the little blood-red snake let out a terrified cry, and it seemed as if it was struck by a shapeless strand of sword chi, causing it to be blasted flying. "This damnable Tai sword. Once I escape, I'll definitely crush it into pieces." A boundlessly furious howl resounded from the depths of the ancient well, and it was faintly mixed with a wave of pain. At the side of the ancient well, the sword that was stabbed into the ground at an angle shook slightly, and its blade was suffused with peerlessly ferocious killing intent. This was a strange place. It seemed to be very desolate and barren, and the terrain was vast and lifeless. No matter if it was day or night, it was always covered in a gray and hazy mist, causing the scenery to be dim, and it was in a state of drowsiness. Lin Sun and the others stepped foot onto this area. It was desolate, and it seemed as if no one had entered here for a few tens of thousands of years. According to Xiang Xiaoyuan, this forbidden area was not like this in the past. When his father entered this place, he had encountered many ferocious and terrible evil spirits, including birds, beasts, ancient clans, spirits, and even evil spirits transformed from weapons and treasures. At that time, his father and more than a dozen people were all first-class emperors in the world. But after entering this place, people died one after another along the way. Until they arrived at the place where the opportunity was buried, there were only 3 people left in the end. Knowing this, Lin Sun couldn't help frowning. Obviously, great changes had taken place in this forbidden area in the years after Xiang Xiaoyuan's father and others left. They had been traveling for the time it took for an incense stick to burn, but they hadn't encountered any danger, not even a single evil spirit. Along the way, there were only snow-white bones and decaying corpses on the ground from time to time, looming in the mist. It was quiet and extremely horrifying. Whoosh! A divine light flashed in the distance. Even through the thick mist, it couldn't escape Lin Sun and the others' eyes, and they all became alert. Thousands of miles away, there was a ray of dazzling snow-white light across the silent world. The 3 people followed it immediately. In front of them, the mist was thicker, shrouded by gray clouds. There were many bones on the ground, which had long decayed. When stepped on them, they would make a cracking sound and instantly rot. "It's a jade archive." Lin Sun and the others opened their eyes wide, revealing a strange look. In their divine senses, that wisp of snow-white light appeared again. It was a palm-sized jade archive. The jade archive seemed to have a mind of its own, shuttling through the boundless mist as if it was looking for something. What a treasure! Lin Sun and the others looked at each other and continued to chase. After a while, the gray mist that shrouded the world became a little lighter, and some scenery on the barren horizon could be seen. Suddenly, the snow-white jade archive fell on a collapsed ruin. Boom! A withered vine, evil spirit rushed out of the ruins, releasing a terrifying ancestor realm aura. At this time, the withered vine let out a terrified scream, and as soon as it appeared, it was about to escape. At this time, the snow-white jade archive was circulating with a dreamy holy radiance. Vaguely, there seemed to be countless mysterious characters of the Great Way appearing, shrouding the withered vine, evil spirit. In a burst of dense explosions, the withered vine, evil spirit seemed to be drained of all its strength and turned into ashes with a rustling sound. After absorbing the power of the withered vine, evil spirit, the snow-white jade archive swayed as if it was drunk, releasing a rain-like radiance. After a while, the snow-white jade archive returned to its original state and continued to fly into the distance. This treasure is actually devouring the power of the ancestor realm, evil spirit. Euduccio gasped, and his eyes stared blankly. This was too incredible. It seems that over these years, the evil spirits distributed in this forbidden area have been eaten by this jade archive as food. Lin Sun's black eyes were filled with surprise. What kind of treasure was this? It could actually use the power of evil spirits as food to replenish itself. Did you notice? The direction this treasure is flying towards is the place where the opportunity we are looking for is buried. Xiang Xiaoyuan said. The three of them looked at each other and continued to chase. Gradually, the gray sky was filled with wisps of scarlet blood. Later, the scarlet color became more and more intense, and the world was dyed with a mysterious scarlet color. It was also at this time that Lin Sun and the others were shocked to see 9 scarlet moons appearing in the sky, sprinkling demonic red light. Sure enough, my father's deduction was right. When there are 9 scarlet moons in the sky, the opportunity hidden here will appear. Xiang Xiaoyuan's eyes were filled with extraordinary splendor. Divine Hall. There's a divine hall. Euduccio let out a cry of surprise. It was a magnificent divine hall, standing on the ground, engraved with the traces of time, exuding a majestic and dignified aura. 9 scarlet moons appeared in the sky above the divine hall, sprinkling scarlet bloodlight, bathing the ancient divine hall in a horrifying bloody smell. Xiang Xiaoyuan could not help but be stunned. The clues left by her father did not mention anything related to this divine hall. Obviously, this divine hall appeared later. Could it be that this is the place where the opportunity never appeared? Xiang Xiaoyuan thought of a possibility, and her state of mind was stirred. Chapter 2585. The palace was ancient, huge, and magnificent. It was like the dwelling place of gods. Indistinctly, there was a sound of chanting. Whoosh! A white light flashed. The jade archive that Lin Sun and the others have been following all the way now radiated an amazing power and shot out a rainbow light. In front of the huge door of the palace, there were layers of Taoist markings. Specks of flowing light flickered, like a sparkling pond. As the rainbow light rushed over, a pair of huge stone doors made a cracking sound and was slowly moving. A gap appeared, and a surprising thin smoke rushed out. The white smoke was like a fairy mist, hazy, ethereal, and agile. At the same time, the jade archive flew into it. Go after it. Lin Sun and the others took action immediately after they entered the gap of the huge stone door. With a roar, the huge stone door closed tightly. Inside the palace, white mist curled up like a piece of holy land. There was no murderous aura and no horrifying creatures. It looked very peaceful. What surprised Lin Sun and the others was that the inside of the palace was extremely vast, like a secret realm. At first glance, they saw a pool that had long dried up. On one side of the pool stood a huge stone tablet. 3 strange and twisted ancient characters were engraved on the stone tablet, with strong strokes and silver hooks. Sword cleansing pool. Lin Sun and the others recognized the characters, but soon they were attracted by a sword mark. At the bottom of the dried sword cleansing pool, there was a straight sword mark. It was obviously left by the last era. Countless years had passed, but the sword mark was still there. This was a terrible sword mark left by a supreme master. Although the power and charm of the sword mark had been washed away by time, there was an eternal sword intent. At first glance, all of them felt a form of overbearing, fierce, and peerless killing intent. It was like a god of the sword had once executed a peerless sword strike here, and even the passage of time was unable to eliminate its sword insight. Uduccio suddenly groaned. His expression suddenly changed, and he did not dare to look at the sword mark again. The sword intent had survived from the last era, but it was still extremely terrifying. When he was meditating, his mind felt like it was being torn apart. This shocked him. He was a peak 7th-stage great emperor, but he was actually unable to resist the power of his sword scar. One could well imagine how terrifying the person who had slashed out that sword was. Not long after, Xiang Xiaoyuan's pretty face turned pale. She withdrew her gaze as well, and a trace of uncontrollable fear appeared between her brows. It was clear that she and Uduccio had sensed how terrifying the sword mark was. Both of them subconsciously looked at Lin Sun, only to find that Lin Sun looked calm, as if he was meditating. After a long time, Lin Sun let out a long breath and said, "This is the immortal sword essence, which is beyond imagination. If the power of this sword is still there, I'm afraid it can kill us in an instant." Earlier, when he was comprehending this sword intent, it caused his state of mind to surge, and he had to concentrate all of his strength to barely endure it. At this moment, the three of them became vigilant. They had just entered this ancient hall, and a dried-up sword cleansing pool had already left such a terrifying sword mark. It was hard to imagine whether there were even more terrifying dangers in this place. They walked inwards, dispersing the white fog and advancing step by step. Not long after, all of their hearts shook, and what they saw was horrifying. This was obviously a Taoist field, like a place where disciples of a sect were taught to cultivate. But at this time, there were corpses lying on the ground, dripping with blood. These corpses were all very strange. They came from different clans, which did not exist in this world at all. It was very likely that they belonged to the creatures of the last era. Only Lin Sun's heart trembled as he recognized the origin of some of the corpses. Snake Spirit Clan, Pale Scale Clan, Demon Spirit Clan. Lin Sun murmured and couldn't help thinking of a long time ago. At that time, he was still young. In the mist city of the southwest province of Xiao Empire, he entered the secret realm of 100 Battles, the third pass of the Green Cloud Path, the heaven accessing place. In the secret realm of 100 Battles, there were more than 100 different kinds of living creatures. The third test was to fight with the living creatures transformed from these statues. Among them, there were strong warriors of the Snake Spirit Clan, Pale Scale Clan, and Demon Spirit Clan. Lin Sun didn't expect to see the corpses of the strong warriors of these clans in the place of opportunity. For a moment, Lin Sun couldn't help but be stunned. In the past, he always thought that the more than 100 kinds of creatures in the secret realm of 100 Battles might exist, but they must also exist on the other side of the starry sky. But now it seemed that the creatures of these clans were very likely to belong to the last era. "Brother Lin, do you know the origin of these corpses?" Xiang Xiaoyuan and Uduccio couldn't help but be surprised. Lin Sun thought for a moment and said, "I've seen them before, but I didn't expect to see them here." As he spoke, he was about to go forward to investigate. But at this time, clatter, the bright red blood in the Taoist field, and the corpses exuding terrible power all turned into flying ashes in an instant and disappeared. Obviously, the owners of these corpses fell in the destruction of the era. Countless years had passed. No matter how strong they had completely disappeared. There is a sword-cleansing pool and a Taoist field. Is it possible that this ancient temple is actually a place of teaching of a Taoist orthodoxy in the last era? Xiang Xiaoyuan put forward a bold speculation. It's very likely. Do you remember that jade archive just now? It disappeared after entering here. I suspect that treasure is very likely to be the treasure left by this Taoist orthodoxy. Uduccio pondered. Let's continue to search. Lin Sun directly took action. Whether it was the sword marks in the sword-cleansing pool or the corpses he saw just now, he had some kind of speculation, but he was not sure. The group moved forward again. Along the way, there were scenes of ruins and mist. After half an hour, Lin Sun and the others stopped and looked up. They saw a hall that seemed to be made of white jade floating in the air, emitting a soft and sacred light. Layers of stone steps spread down to the ground. Counting carefully, there were exactly 99 steps. Each stone step was like a horizontal moat, extremely wide and tall. It was carved with all kinds of complicated patterns of clouds, but they were all mottled and blurred. What made people's hearts palpitate was that, on each stone step, there were corpses lying in disorder. They wore ancient clothes and belonged to various clans. They died in different ways, looking gloomy and ferocious. The 99 steps were all covered with corpses. Some were obviously fighting fiercely. Their bodies were still standing, holding divine weapons in their hands, but they seemed to be frozen there. Some were struggling on the ground, but they maintained a posture of not standing up. It was just like during the last era, a world-shocking battle had occurred here, yet an extremely strange calamity had appeared here. It caused time and space to stop, and it silently reaped the lives of all the living beings on the battlefield. Lin Sun and the others all looked extremely solemn. What a terrible disaster it was. In an instant, it wiped out the lives of all the peerless figures on the battlefield. It was incredible. They all noticed that the corpses on the 99 steps were extremely powerful, and the closer they got to the temple at the end of the stone steps, the more terrifying the aura of the corpses became. There was no lack of supreme experts among them, and some of them were definitely much stronger than them, but they all died here. Could it be that when the war broke out here, the calamity of the era came, causing all the creatures to suffer? Xiang Xiaoyuan couldn't help speculating. Only such a terrible calamity could turn so many terrifying existences into corpses in an instant. At this time, Yuduchio exclaimed in surprise, "Tai E immortal sect." Through the misty void, they could see a plaque hanging above an ancient palace that seemed to be made of white jade at the end of the stone steps. For brilliant golden characters of the Great Path were engraved on it. Tai E immortal sect. At this time, Lin Sun's body stiffened. His eyes were filled with disbelief, and he was in a trance for a while. Tai E immortal sect. Even after so many years, how could he forget this incomparably special name? Back then, in the third stage of Green Cloud Path, the last opponent he met was a guy from Tai E immortal sect. It was a dignified and outstanding man. He wore a green feather robe, walked barefoot, and his long hair draped over his shoulders. He called himself Wei Mingzi. As the last opponent in the secret realm of 100 battles, only Wei Mingzi had wisdom. He was the strangest and most abnormal one. He used all means to possess Lin Sun. This also made Lin Sun remember it the most. Lin Sun still remembered that Wei Mingzi once said that he was the 15th generation successor of Tai E immortal sect. Because he mistakenly entered the heaven accessing place, he suddenly encountered a disaster and ended up dying. Only a wisp of his soul was sealed here and could never be freed. This was also the first time Lin Sun had heard of the name of a Taoist sect with the word immortal. Originally, this happened when Lin Sun was a teenager. It had been so long that Lin Sun had almost forgotten it. But now, standing under the 99 stone steps, looking at the palace at the end of the stone steps, Lin Sun could not calm down. Only then did he realize that Tai E immortal sect belonged to a force of the last era. By the way, there is also Tai City. I'm afraid the word Tai is also related to this Tai immortal sect. The more Lin Sun thought about it, the more turbulent his heart became. The secret realm of 100 battles in the heaven accessing place was actually related to an immortal sect that belonged to the last era. Did this mean that the heaven accessing place was also a treasure that had survived from the last era? Was it obtained by Luo Tongtian, the master of sky reaching, in this era? Or did the master of sky reaching enter this place, suppress Wei Mingzi, and imprison him in the secret realm of 100 battles? Also, when she was stationed in the heaven-accessing place, didn't he find something strange about the secret realm of 100 battles? For a time, many doubts came to Lin Sun's mind. He had thought that this was an action to search for opportunities, but now he found that this place related to Tai immortal sect was not simple. Look, that jade archive has appeared again. Suddenly, Yu Duqiu said. Lin Sun and Xiang Xiaoyuan looked up and saw the mysterious jade archive they had been tracking all the way in front of the ancient white jade palace at the end of the stone steps. P.S. When I wrote about Tai City, I planned to bury this pit. But it was likely that most children had forgotten this pit. Goldfish had already pushed an article on the public account, which was dedicated to the Tai immortal sect and the heaven-accessing place. If you're interested, you can open it. After adding your followers, you can click on the history to see it. Chapter 2586. The palace floated in the sky, emanating a mysterious Taoist light. The snow-white jade archive appeared in front of the palace. With a buzzing sound, mysterious patterns of the great Tao sprinkled down like rain. Yu Duqiu's eyes lit up, and he immediately made a move. With a wave of his hand, a huge net formed from fiery red Taoist light soared into the sky. Sparkling and translucent lines of fire interweaved and shot towards the jade archive. Buzz! A strange buzzing sound could be heard, and dazzling Taoist patterns emerged from the jade archive, as dazzling as the morning sun. Instantly, a corpse with a single horn on its head and a body covered in dark black scale armor on the 99th step seemed as if it had come to life. It suddenly let out a roar before fiercely swinging the enormous axe in its hand. Boom! The fiery red net was instantly shattered, and a rain of fire splashed everywhere. Yu Duqiu couldn't help but be shocked. He said, "The power of this jade archive can actually resurrect a fallen powerhouse from the last era." Die! The horned and scaled figure let out a roar. It was hundreds of meters tall, and its arms were as thick as rocks. Its skin was bronze in color, and it swung the giant axe in its hand. Boom! A peerless blood-colored axe light slashed over, tearing apart the sky with boundlessly overbearing might, and it was simply comparable to the might of an ancestor realm existence. Yu Duqiu activated the yellow skin gourd in his hand. Chaotic light of the great path gushed out to resist the attack. But in merely an instant, he was blasted flying, and his face turned pale while astonishment arose in his eyes. The horned and scaled figure's strength was unimaginably terrifying. Lin Sun and Xiang Xiaoyuan were both shocked. Yu Duqiu was a 7th-level martial monarch, but he couldn't even withstand a single blow. This was completely beyond their expectations. In front of the lofty palace, the jade archive glowed and buzzed incessantly. At the same time, the horned and scaled figure let out a thunderous roar. Once again, he brandished his giant axe and slashed at Yu Duqiu. Boom! 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 Every single strike was boundlessly domineering, and it was as if the ancient god of berserkers was enraged and wanted to destroy the world. Yu Duqiu found himself in a perilous situation. Go! Xiang Xiaoyuan tried to rescue him at the first possible moment. The green lightning blade that was as verdant as a willow leaf swept out, bringing with it strands of dazzling lightning as it entered the battlefield. But soon, she fell into a passive position. It wasn't that he wasn't strong enough, but that the horned and scaled figure's battle prowess was too terrifying. It was even more ferocious than a Tao ancestor. "Gentlemen, let me do it." Lin Sun did not dare to be negligent when he saw that the two of them were still inferior to each other, even though they had joined hands. Boom! He circulated the universal Tao of kings, causing his palm and fingers to move like bolts of lightning. Every single punch he struck out was like a large abyss that soared through the sky, and it revealed supreme and overbearing might that was boundless and all-powerful. Numerous enormous and fierce axe lights were fiercely smashed into pieces by the fist force, and they emitted explosive sounds in the sky before transforming into a rain of light that dispersed like the tide, and it seemed all-powerful and all-powerful. Xiang Xiaoyuan and Yu Duqiu were dumbfounded. Lin Sun's attack had resolved their dangerous situation in one fell swoop. The most frightening thing was that Lin Sun did not even use his sovereign weapon. His fists were invincible and unstoppable. Die! The horned and scaled man roared, and his burly body emitted circles of the power of the Great Path. He kept striking with the giant axe in his hand, but they were all defeated by Lin Sun with brute force. Moreover, he was about to charge up the stone steps. In front of the main hall where the horizontal board of the Tai Immortal Sect hung, the snow-white jade archive buzzed. It seemed to be a little anxious, and it suddenly released a vast ocean of mysterious patterns of the Great Path. Boom! On the stone steps, a figure holding a bronze spear stood up. He was thin, with the head of a lion and the body of a human. He was dressed in armor, and his whole body was blooming with dense black electric arcs. As he stood up, a destructive and terrifying power suddenly spread out. My spear points to my spirit. The armored figure uttered a cold voice and stabbed out with the bronze spear in his hand. Boom! The void was suddenly torn apart, and a dazzling blood-colored spear shadow swept out. There were traces of black electric arcs entwined in it, as if it could penetrate the sun and the moon and break through the universe. It was no less powerful than the horned and scaled man. Lin Sun still waved his fist, and with a bang, he broke the blood-colored spear shadow. Countless black electric arcs were shattered, producing an earth-shattering sound of thunder. Xiang Xiaoyuan and Yu Duqiu's expressions changed. They could see that the mysterious Jade Archive had a strange power that could resurrect those corpses. There were hundreds and thousands of corpses left on the 99th step. If this situation continued, the consequences would be absolutely unimaginable. You too, wait here for a moment. After saying this, Lin Sun suddenly stretched his body and rushed out. He flew up the stone steps and swept up into the sky. Boom! His power was released to the extreme, like an abyss or a furnace. Hundreds of millions of rays of light flowed, faintly having the power to swallow the world. The book of life and death, the sea of bitterness, the devil's snare, the black refinement. The power of the 10 Directions Yamapath was also activated to the extreme. Buzz! As the abyssal sword cauldron was taken out, it was like opening the door to the netherworld. The terrifying and boundless devouring power swept out, rumbling. First, the horned and scaled man couldn't bear it. The towering and majestic figure was directly smashed by the abyssal sword cauldron. The giant axe in his hand was broken inch by inch, turning into a bloody rain of light that scattered all over the sky. Clang! Almost at the same time, the abyssal Taoist sword swept out, exerting the power of the Way of Judgment. It was like the sword of God's punishment falling on the world. Puff! The figure holding the bronze spear was directly split by the sword chi and turned into ashes. In a flash, 2 formidable enemies were killed. Xiang Xiaoyuan and Yu Duqiu were stunned. Fierce. Too fierce. Even though they had seen Lin Sun's tyrannical strength before, they were still amazed at this moment. But they also knew that the power of the great way Lin Sun exerted at this moment was extremely mysterious. It seemed to be born to restrain those evil spirits, so that he had an absolute advantage in the battle. However, before Lin Sun's figure approached, a horrible restrictive force suddenly spread from the first step, making Lin Sun's figure, which was originally rushing up, sink suddenly and almost be suppressed. Lin Sun raised his eyebrows. There was an extremely amazing restrictive force on the 99 stone steps, which was enough to suppress any existence of the Emperor realm. No wonder the auras of those corpses were so terrifying. Back then, they couldn't fly into the sky or burrow into the earth, and could only fight and kill on the stone steps. He took a deep breath and no longer tried to fly. Instead, he set foot on the first step, intending to go up. Sure enough, the restrictive force on his body had obviously dissipated a lot, and he could not even feel its existence. Every step was like a natural moat, incomparably wide and tall. Standing on it was like an ant standing in a Taoist field, extremely small. And when Lin Sun was about to rush forward, boom! The few tens of corpses that lay in disorder on the first layer of the stone stairway had actually come to life in unison from their eternal slumber. There were all sorts of living beings here, and they held various treasures and emanated extremely terrifying might. "It's that damn Jade Archive!" Euducio shouted, a little exasperated. It was the power of the Jade Archive that brought the corpses on the first stone step back to life. Kill! Almost immediately, those resurrected corpses rushed towards Lin Sun, each with a monstrous aura. The weakest one was comparable to a ninth realm ancestor, and it was not uncommon to see one as strong as the ancestor of Tao. Such a group of terrifying creatures attacked together. The scene was simply despairing. Lin Sun could not help but frown. There were 99 stone steps, and there were many corpses on each step. If he was entangled like this, he would die of exhaustion before he reached the end of the stone step. While he was thinking, the battle had already broken out. Boom! On the first stone step, the sky was dark and the earth was dark. All kinds of terrible power superimposed, surging like 100,000 mountains to oppress Lin Sun. However, Lin Sun did not fight head-on, nor did he intend to be entangled. He activated the abyssal sword cauldron, broke through the siege with all his strength, and rushed to the second stone step. Along the way, those terrifying corpses kept attacking Lin Sun, as if they were crazy, trying to intercept and kill him, not allowing him to pass. The extremely dangerous scene made Xiang Xiaoyuan and Euducio nervous and worried for Lin Sun. For anyone, the scene in front of them was like a dead end. Unless they had the power beyond the ancestor realm, otherwise, even the emperor ancestor could not pass. But at this time, Lin Sun was alone. The most incredible thing was that under the gazes of Xiang Xiaoyuan and Euducio, Lin Sun not only broke through the siege, but also rushed to the second stone step at a very fast speed. I see. The stone step is extremely vast. Although there are many corpses on it, it is impossible to cover all of them. As long as I seize the opportunity and rush forward with all my strength, I will have a great chance to rush up. Xiang Xiaoyuan understood, but she was still frightened, because she knew that once Lin Sun's momentum slowed down, he would fall into a heavy siege, and then it would be too dangerous. The most terrible thing was that it would be impossible to retreat at that time, and he would be trapped in it. What should we do? Should we remind Brother Lin to retreat now? Otherwise, once he goes higher and higher, it will be impossible to retreat. Euducio also realized this, and his expression was extremely solemn. Do you think he didn't see this? Xiang Xiaoyuan said, "Let's wait and see. When it is really dangerous, we will use some of our trump cards to save Brother Lin." Euducio nodded. Boom! As soon as Lin Sun reached the second floor, more than 30 corpses scattered on it came back to life, roared and shouted, and rushed toward him. The terrible aura surged and spread. If it were an ordinary person, he would be completely suppressed at the first time and unable to struggle, let alone rush and kill. "Open!" Lin Sun shouted, and his tall figure shone, supporting the terrible killing intent that blotted out the sky and the earth. His figure was like lightning, and he urged the abyssal sword cauldron to rush forward. Boom! An earth-shattering roar sounded, and the power, which was comparable to the full attack of the Emperor Ancestor realm, surged and spread on the second stone step. In the outside world, such a blow could definitely easily sink a piece of heaven and earth and destroy a part of the world. It was unimaginably terrible. Lin Sun also suffered the impact, but it was not to the extent that he could not move. In just a moment, he successfully broke through the siege and rushed to the third stone step at an incredible speed. Chapter 2587. On the third stone step. With the experience of the first two times, Lin Sun was familiar with the process. He launched a sudden attack without any delay at all. It was incredibly fast. He was also extremely powerful. He didn't hold back and rushed forward with all his might. The way of another world he mastered had a natural restraining effect on these horrible corpses, so the threat and blow he suffered were much smaller than he had imagined. Soon he killed his way up to the fourth, the fifth, the the sixth layer by layer, from the eyes of Xiang Xiaoyuan and Yuduqiu. They saw Lin Sun's figure, like a sharp and dazzling lightning, tearing the void and breaking through the encirclement. He killed his way out of the encirclement, skyrocketing. Both of them couldn't help but be stunned, as if they were witnessing a miracle. Lin Sun's figure undoubtedly became the brightest light in this miracle. Occasionally, they felt suffocated because they realized that the danger Lin Sun encountered was too fatal and boundlessly terrible. But every time, Lin Sun was able to turn danger into safety. He broke through the encirclement with unimaginable means and left safely. Before they could breathe a sigh of relief, Lin Sun, who stepped on a higher stone step, would encounter a more serious and terrible encirclement. Their bodies were stiff and their hearts were in pain. This kind of feeling was like a breath held in the chest, rising and falling, unable to be vented. It made them feel as if they were suffering in a sea of fire and a mountain of knives just by looking at it. It was not enough to describe the feeling as thrilling. The 18th floor, the 29th floor, gradually, Lin Sun's figure went higher and higher, as if he was dancing on the tip of a knife, and the disaster of life and death would come at any time. The slightest bit of sluggishness could lead to an irrecoverable outcome. Xiang Xiaoyuan and Yuduqiu's hearts trembled slightly. They had never been so nervous since they started their cultivation, and they were nervous for others. At the same time, they also noticed that on the stone steps Lin Sun walked, the resurrected horrible corpses fell into silence one after another, as if they were completely dead. Xiang Xiaoyuan went forward to try. But when she approached the first stone step, there was a terrifying aura coming from it, and the horrible corpses showed signs of resurrection. She immediately stopped in her tracks and retreated. Her gaze was fixed on the great hall at the end of the 99 stone steps. The snow-white jade archive hummed and hummed, flowing with mysterious and cryptic patterns. Xiang Xiaoyuan couldn't help but frown. Why do I feel that this jade archive seems to have a spirit of its own? It seems to possess intelligence. This jade archive was too miraculous. Not only could it absorb and refine the power of the evil spirits, but could also absorb and refine the evil spirits' powers. Moreover, in the ruins of the Tai, immortal sect, it was like a ruler controlling the terrifying corpses on the 99 stone steps, preventing anyone who dared to approach. Yuduqiu took a deep breath and said, "There is only one possibility. There must be something extraordinary hidden in that palace." While they were chatting, the sound of a shocking battle resounded. Both of their expressions changed. Looking up, he found that Lin Sun had already rushed to the top of the 54 stone step where he was blocked. More than a dozen terrifying corpses came to life and attacked together. The power they released completely drowned that level of stone steps. Compared to the terrifying corpses on the stone steps before, the terrifying corpses that surrounded Lin Sun now were obviously stronger. The aura released by each of them was no weaker than that of Wen Taolu, Heng Zhou, and other living emperor ancestors. They were unbelievably powerful. In other words, Lin Sun was facing more than 10 emperor ancestors at the same time. This was too terrifying. With just a glance, Xiang Xiaoyuan and Yuduqiu felt their scalps go numb. Their eyes couldn't help but be filled with horror and worry. The current Lin Sun naturally couldn't resist the siege of more than 10 emperor ancestors by himself. But the situation was special. First of all, although these corpses were as terrifying as the emperor ancestor, they weren't the emperor ancestor after all. They didn't have any intelligence and only knew how to rush forward. Secondly, the way of the netherworld that Lin Sun controlled naturally restrained the power of these terrifying corpses, making the threat he suffered far less fatal than Xiang Xiaoyuan and Yuduqiu thought. But even so, facing more than 10 ghostly things that were no weaker than the emperor ancestor still made Lin Sun feel a lot more pressure. Almost immediately, he released his Greenwood Taoist physique. Like his main body, he used the way of the underworld to assist his main body in the charge. Boom! In the fierce battle, Lin Sun was like a tiger with wings. He suddenly broke out of the encirclement and rushed to a higher level. That scene made Xiang Xiaoyuan and Yuduqiu dizzy. Doppelganger? Could be like this. This kind of doppelganger is no weaker than the power of the original body. What kind of inheritance is this? Euducio was shocked. The Great Way doppelganger technique was passed down in all the major universes, and each had its own magic. Some could even create thousands of doppelgangers, which was mysterious and terrifying. However, without exception, the core of the strength of these doppelgangers originated from the main body, yet they were weaker than the main body. When they fought, they didn't possess any intelligence, nor did they possess true attainments in the Tao. They were far inferior to the main body. But Lin Sun's doppelganger of the Great Way had independent cultivation and talent, which was incredibly powerful. As far as I know, in the eternal true world, there is an inheritance ranked 9th in the 9 heavens that can temper such a doppelganger of the Great Way. Xiang Xiaoyuan said, that inheritance is called 4 symbols 9 spirits, and it is the supreme inheritance of the Fu clan, one of the 10 immortal giants of the 8th heaven. When it is tempered to the extreme, it can create 4 different doppelgangers of the Great Way. Each doppelganger controls a kind of terrifying talent, and when fighting, it can explode with incredible power. 4 symbols 9 spirits, the supreme inheritance of the Fu clan, one of the 10 immortal giants of the 8th heaven. Euducio was shocked and said, "You don't suspect that this guy is related to the immortal giant Fu clan, do you?" Xiang Xiaoyuan laughed. If he is related to the Fu clan, how would the 3 immortal imperial clans dare to deal with him? Fu clan. That was an existence that could be called a giant in the eternal true world. As the two talked, Lin Sun's figure continued to rush up the stone steps, and the danger he encountered became more and more terrifying. When he reached the 60th stone step, even with the help of the green wood Taoist body, the pressure Lin Sun faced increased. There were only 9 opponents, but each of them was extremely strong and could be called abnormal. If it were not for the fact that they did not have intelligence and were not real living beings, they were bound to be even more terrifying. Without hesitation, Lin Sun summoned the red fire Taoist body. In this way, when he rushed to the 73rd stone step, Lin Sun had to summon the black water Taoist body. When he reached the 81st stone step, the yellow Taoist body also came out to fight. This scene fell into the eyes of Xiang Xiaoyuan and Euducio. The two looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. They could not help but have a thought. Back in Tai City, Lin Sun's original body alone could compete with the Emperor Ancestor Wen Taolu. If his doppelgangers came out together, wouldn't even Wen Taolu be completely suppressed? Thinking of this, the two couldn't help but gasp. Only then did they realize that even though they had long realized that Lin Sun's combat power was incomparably incredible, but only at this moment, after seeing Lin Sun's combat power to the extreme, did they realize that they had underestimated him. Soon, the two didn't dare to let their imagination run wild. They got rid of all distracting thoughts, and their eyes were attracted by Lin Sun's figure on the stone steps. Their minds were also unprecedentedly nervous, because at this time, Lin Sun had completely released the 5 Taoist bodies and came to the 93rd stone step. Boom! The sky was dark and the earth was dark. The boundless violent power turned into various scenes of destruction, which made people despair and collapse just by looking at it. In fact, Lin Sun also felt great pressure at this moment. He was injured, his clothes were torn, and his face was slightly pale. From the first step of the stone steps until now, he had practically killed his way through in one go, without stopping at all. He had released all his strength along the way, and only then did he finally kill his way here. All along the way, they'd encountered countless dangers, and the slightest bit of carelessness would cause them to be bound to be crushed into pieces and perish. At this time, there were only 7 opponents. In terms of combat power, the 7 were much stronger than the Emperor Ancestor Hung, Tianxuo, and Wen Taolu. Lin Sun suspected that these 7 horrible corpses were very likely to have surpassed the Ancestor Realm and reached the Immortal Realm when they were alive. They were too strong. Even if the Netherworld Force naturally restrained these ghosts, it still posed a great threat to Lin Sun during the battle. He was constantly injured and blood splashed. Kill. Lin Sun's eyes were calm. He didn't care about those injuries at all. In fact, he couldn't care about them. There were only 6 stone steps left to the White Jade Palace. How could he give up at this time? At this moment, he was almost crazy. He released all his strength and kept attacking, letting the 5 doppelgangers bear some fatal threats. Finally, he broke out of the encirclement and stepped on the 94th step. There were 6 opponents here. Lin Sun's clothes were stained with blood, and his face was pale. But he didn't slow down at all. As soon as he climbed the steps, he attacked with all his strength. In the end, although he broke out of the encirclement and reached the 95th step, the greenwood Taoist body was seriously injured. It directly collapsed and turned into a green light, which was put away by Lin Sun. Bang! When Lin Sun used all his strength to fight on the 96th step, the yellow Taoist body also collapsed and was completely shattered. Lin Sun had no time to care about the pain. He put away the original power of the yellow Taoist body and set out on the journey again. The 97th step. The black water Taoist body was also defeated and turned into black light rain and poured into Lin Sun's body. The 98th step. The remaining 2 Taoist bodies, Platinum Taoist body and Red Fire Taoist body, were defeated. When Lin Sun reached the 99th step, the 5 doppelgangers of Tao all collapsed, and even the original body was seriously injured. Cracks like cracked porcelain appeared on his body, and blood soaked his whole body. His handsome face was so pale that it was almost transparent. At this time, he was only 1 step away from the White Jade Palace. But in front of this step, there was a horrible corpse blocking his way. It was a man in white, with black hair as black as ink. His figure was as elegant as an immortal, and his whole body was intact, as if he came from the last era. And his breath had reached an unfathomable level. P.S. An irresistible factor has appeared. The goldfish has unfortunately caught a cold and caught a fever. Well, he had taken a medicine. Chapter 2588. Xiang Xiaoyuan and Yu Duqiu were unprecedentedly nervous. They hadn't lost their composure like this for many years. They only felt that their hearts were hanging in their throats, and they didn't dare to breathe. At first, they didn't have any hope for Lin Sun at all, because on the 99 stone steps were covered with horrible corpses, each of which was unimaginably powerful after resurrection. They were even ready to use their trump cards to rescue Lin Sun at any time. But Lin Sun's performance was completely beyond their expectations. Or it could be said that he broke their expectations again and again. Before Lin Sun reached the 36th step, they thought it was a miracle and were amazed by the power Lin Sun showed. Until Lin Sun went up 1 step at a time, they were also attracted by him. They were shocked and couldn't calm down. At this time, they were all worried about Lin Sun and almost had the idea of using their trump cards to rescue Lin Sun several times. And when Lin Sun killed all the way to the 90th step, it brought them an unprecedented shock, as if their expectations had been subverted and their imagination had been broken. Miracles were miracles because they were unreal. When the miracle became a reality, everything seemed particularly shocking, until Lin Sun killed all the way to the 99th step, bathed in blood. Xiang Xiaoyuan and Yu Duqiu only had one feeling, stunned. He watched as Lin Sun's great Tao avatars were destroyed one after another. He watched as his body was stained with blood as he fought to the death. He watched as Lin Sun's figure never flinched. An inexplicable emotion surged in their hearts like a raging sea. After experiencing blood and the ordeal of life and death, he vowed not to turn back. The kind of willpower, the kind of courage, that kind of attitude that regarded life and death as floating clouds was like a thunderbolt that passed through their minds, leaving an indelible mark. But at this time, the two still couldn't relax, because Lin Sun met the most terrible opponent. His white clothes were whiter than snow, and his aura was like that of an immortal. On the 99th step, although the man was alone, his power was so terrible that it couldn't be estimated. In front of the palace, the snow-white jade archive was flowing with obscure and mysterious light rain. It seemed that the Jade Archive was not worried, or it had absolute confidence in the man in white on the 99th step. Lin Sun was seriously injured at the moment. His face was pale and transparent, and he couldn't stop bleeding all over his body. Looking at the man in white, Lin Sun immediately concluded that even if he risked his life, he would not be able to shake the man at all. Too strong. It had completely surpassed Lin Sun's understanding of power. He didn't even dare to confirm if the other party was an immortal-level existence, because he could not see through it at all. When facing him, it was like an ant facing a true god. In the face of Lin Sun, who was on the 99th floor, the man in white just flicked his fingers. It was a casual movement. It was as if he wanted to flick an ant away. This was undoubtedly the greatest disdain. However, in the eyes of Xiang Xiuyuan and Yu Duqiu, they only felt a stabbing pain in their minds the moment the white-robed man made his move. It was as if their souls were being torn apart. All their senses and visions disappeared. It was a vast expanse of white. After this moment, they didn't see Lin Sun's figure appear on the 99th step. The man in white was stunned. He looked at his fingertips in confusion and then turned around to look at Lin Sun, who was already standing in front of the White Jade Palace. He seemed to be in disbelief. It was as if he was shocked into silence. Bang! The power of the man in white faded and returned to silence. He fell to the ground, maintaining the posture when he died in the last era. At this moment, Lin Sun seemed to hear a long sigh, but he was not sure if it was his illusion, because his injury at the moment was indeed too serious. In order to rush up the 99th stone step, he even used the forbidden death magic under the condition of serious injury, which made him feel like a lamp running out of oil. Buzz, not far away, the snow-white jade archive buzzed as if it was frightened. It turned into a white light and rushed into the White Jade Palace. Tai Immortal Sect. Lin Sun glanced at the horizontal board above the main hall and took a deep breath. He took out several bottles of rare and precious healing medicine and swallowed them all. Then, he walked straight into the main hall. When Xiang Xiuyuan and Yu Duqiu regained consciousness, they found that Lin Sun had disappeared on the 99th stone step. Only the corpse of the man in white was sitting there, maintaining the original posture. The whole 99th step was restored to the original scene. The corpses were piled up in disorder, as if nothing had happened just now. Brother Lin, could it be? Yu Duqiu's face changed greatly. Xiang Xiuyuan interrupted. That's impossible. Didn't you see? That mysterious jade archive has disappeared as well. I suspect that at the very last moment, Brother Lin must have used some sort of trump card to successfully cross the 99th step and enter the Tai Grand Hall. After a pause, she said, "We will wait here. If Brother Lin is still alive, he will definitely come back." Yu Duqiu nodded. Tai Palace. It was silent and misty. The ground was covered with strange black stones, which had become mottled after years of washing. When passing by a stone pillar, Lin Sun noticed that mysterious Taoist diagrams were engraved on it. They were obviously cultivation guidance diagrams, but they were all incomplete and blurred. After careful identification, Lin Sun roughly found that each of these diagrams represented a cultivation realm. This was the cultivation system of the last era. The names of each realm were profound and full of unfathomable mystery. For example, the Purple Mansion, Golden Hall, Inyang Jindan, Nirvana, Nether Transformation Realm, Earth Immortal. Above them was a kind of immortal cultivation system. There were Heaven Immortal, Mysterious Immortal, Almighty Immortal, Saint Immortal. Unfortunately, the cultivation guidance diagrams recorded in those diagrams have been broken and lost, so Lin Sun could only understand the meaning without knowing the specific mystery of each realm. The last era was called the Immortal Martial Era. Naturally, it was to seek the mystery of the Tao related to immortal cultivation. It turns out that the legendary immortals really exist, but they belong to the last era. Lin Sun looked around for a while and continued to move forward. He had been searching for the trace of the mysterious jade archive. He was always on guard and didn't dare to take it lightly. Who knew if there were other dangers in this damn place? Before long, Lin Sun suddenly heard a conversation coming from the depths of the mist. As he walked closer, he saw the world change abruptly. All kinds of lights rose and chaos surged. All of a sudden, it was as if he had come to another world. This was a magnificent and ancient Taoist field, filled with immortal clouds, flying immortal birds, and auspicious beasts. A group of cultivators dressed in feather robes sat cross-legged in the Taoist field. On the seat at the front of the Taoist field, a man with a strange appearance sat upright. His body was surrounded by hundreds of millions of immortal clouds. On the top of his head, there was an immortal sword totem, which had the power to shock the heavens. A scene that belonged to the last era. Lin Sun was shocked and realized that he had entered an incredible dreamland, as if he had gone back to the ancient times and come to the last era. The great calamity has come, and it is difficult for our Tai immortal sect to stay out of it. From today onwards, I will use the Tai sword to suppress the evil sealing well and seize a chance of survival in the calamity with my life. I only hope that my Tai immortal sect can survive the change of the era. The man with a strange appearance spoke with determination in his eyes, as if he was making arrangements for his funeral. Headmaster, all the figures in the Taoist field cried out sorrowfully in unison, looking sad. No one can resist the change of the era, and no great force can resist it. This era is doomed to sink and perish in the great calamity of the era. The man called Headmaster had a sad look in his eyes. Immediately, he called out, Wei Mingzi, come and control the jade plate of fate. A man came out. He was dignified and outstanding. He was wearing a green feather robe, walking barefoot, and his long hair was loose on his shoulders. Lin Sun was shocked. It was really this guy, the guy who had almost possessed him in the secret realm of 100 battles. Headmaster, Wei Mingzi showed a sad look. Originally, with your aptitude and cultivation, you could have taken charge of the Tai immortal sect long ago. Unfortunately, the calamity of the era came too suddenly and unexpectedly. The headmaster of Tai sighed and then waved his sleeve. Buzz! A snow-white jade archive floated into appearance. It was sparkling and resplendent, as if it was polished from the most translucent and purest jade in the world, and it emanated boundless divine light. This good fortune jade disc was passed down by my sex ancestor. It is branded with the supreme and unfathomable mysteries of the Order of the Immortal Tao. Keep it well. If my Tai immortal sect is able to survive this calamity, I hope, in your hands, the Tai immortal sect will be able to pass on the torch and exist forever. The headmaster of Tai exhorted. Yes. Wei Mingzi looked solemn and stepped forward to take the jade plate of fate. Boom! At this time, Lin Sun's field of vision suddenly changed, and all the scenes disappeared. But before he could recover his vision, he fell into another unimaginable illusion. It was a ruin, and everything was withering. A wild laughter resounded through the world like thunder. The Tai immortal sect is gone. Gone! Wei Mingzi's figure stood on the ruins, his face distorted, and he laughed wildly. Headmaster, you didn't give me the jade plate of fate until the calamity of the era came. Do you really think I will appreciate your kindness? You are all dead? Ha ha! It's good that you are dead. In this world, only I, Wei Mingzi, survived the destruction of the era, and it is destined that no one can make me endure and bow my head. In the future, I will rebuild the Tai immortal sect and build a supreme sect that belongs to me alone. That crazy roar was filled with endless joy. It was as if the hatred and resentment that had been accumulated for many years had all been vented at this moment. Lin Sun couldn't help but be surprised that Wei Mingzi was so crazy. If the headmaster of Tai saw him like this, how disappointed and angry he would be. At this moment, suddenly a majestic figure appeared on the ruins. Wei Mingzi, who was laughing wildly, stopped abruptly. When Lin Sun saw the majestic figure, his eyes widened in disbelief. Chapter 2589. The Lord of Tongtian. Lin Sun was shocked. When Feiyun village opened the heaven accessing place for the first time, Lin Sun had seen a scene related to the Lord of Tongtian. He stood between heaven and earth, waved his fist to break the sky, and opened the gate of stars. He was as powerful as a dominator. After pushing open the gate of heaven behind the 9 levels of green cloud path, Lin Sun had seen the willpower left by the Lord of Tongtian. How could Lin Sun not recognize the majestic figure of the Lord of Tongtian when he saw it in the ruins? You gloat over the destruction of your sect. You're just a survivor of the last era. You're crazy. As soon as the Lord of Tongtian appeared in the ruins, he made a disdainful sound. His hair was as black as ink, and his whole body reflected the terrible power of immortality. His voice resounded through the sky like thunder. Wei Mingzi snorted coldly and said expressionlessly, "You can recognize my origin. It seems that you're also a great figure in this era. I advise you to get out of here. Don't make a mistake." What answered him was the Lord of Tongtian's overbearing punch. Boom! It was like an enormous abyss lay across the heavens and the earth, and it was boundlessly large and unfathomable. It swept through the sky, and everywhere it passed, the stars in the universe were dragged down one by one and crushed into powder before surging into the terrifying force of the fist. That expanse of the heavens and the earth suddenly started to warp and collapse like a piece of paper. The battle broke out. Wei Mingzi was extremely tyrannical. He fought fiercely with the Lord of Tongtian, showing supreme power far beyond that of the Emperor ancestor. After the battle lasted for a quarter of an hour, the Lord of Tongtian suddenly let out a long roar. In front of him, he released endless magnificent space-time light rain, all of which was integrated into his power. Then he punched out. It was like disturbing time and space, making the river of time violent, and all the scenes between heaven and earth showed a kind of rapid decline and collapse. Lin Sun felt a stabbing pain in front of his eyes, and his heart was in turmoil. When his vision became clear, he saw that Wei Mingzi had suddenly turned into a young man. He was heroic, as if he were countless years younger. The terrible thing was that his cultivation seemed to have been cut off and suddenly declined to the extreme. Reverse time. Deprive cultivation. Impossible. How can you control such a taboo power? It's impossible. Wei Mingzi screamed in horror. The Heavenspan Lord's fist strike caused Yang Qi's age and cultivation base to revert to his youth. Only his memories and intelligence remained the same. However, this scene was horrifying enough to make one's hair stand on end. Just imagine a cultivator that stepped foot into the Emperor realm with great difficulty, yet instantly lost all his cultivation and returned to the time when he was a youth that had just stepped onto the path of cultivation. How terrifying would that scene be? Lin Sun sucked in a breath of cold air, his heart pounding as he realized that Lord Heavenspan's fist strike contained the 3rd stage of the Grand Abyss Devourer technique. But when Lin Sun looked carefully, the scene he saw collapsed and disappeared again, and he couldn't see it anymore. But soon, another illusory scene appeared. Immortal mist filled the air as the Lord of Skyspan stood at the end of the 99 stone steps. In his palm, he held Wei Mingzi's primordial spirit tightly. "You won't hand over the key even if you die? Fine, I'll completely suppress you, and you'll never be able to escape." As he spoke, a strange and mysterious door appeared in the palm of the Lord of Skyspan, which suppressed Wei Mingzi's primordial spirit. It's a pity that I can't find the Jade Plate of Fate. Otherwise, I would be able to see what the Order of Immortals from the last era was like. Standing in front of the Tai Palace, the Lord of Skyspan let out a long sigh. Then, all the scenes disappeared. Lin Sun's heart was in turmoil. He finally understood how Wei Mingzi had been suppressed, and some of the mysteries in his heart had been answered. But what is the key that the Lord of Skyspan is looking for? Lin Sun frowned. The reason why the Lord of Skyspan had suppressed Wei Mingzi was for a key, which made him extremely curious. After thinking for a moment, Lin Sun shook his head, abandoned all distracting thoughts, and continued to walk forward. The immortal mist filled the air, and the hall seemed endless and incomparably vast. Suddenly, Lin Sun caught a glimpse of a snow-white figure flashing in the immortal mist in the distance. He chased after it at the first moment. A blue stone appeared in his field of vision, which looked like a platform. When Lin Sun looked over, He seemed to see figures sitting cross-legged on the blue stone in the past, comprehending the great way and refining their way of cultivation. Soon, he saw the figure of the Lord of Skyspan sitting on the blue stone, like a great abyss, pondering and refining his way of cultivation. However, when Lin Sun fixed his eyes on it, he found that what he had just seen was all an illusion. It was formed by the residual aura on the blue stone, which was incomparably mysterious. Lin Sun glanced around and couldn't help raising his eyebrows. The mysterious jade archive had obviously drawn him here on purpose. What did it want to do? Did it want him to comprehend and refine the power of the great way on this blue stone, just like those figures in the past? Or could it be that only by doing this could he gain its approval? Lin Sun was silent for a moment, and then directly stepped forward. He was already seriously injured and on the verge of death. Although he had swallowed many rare healing medicines, it was impossible for him to recover his cultivation in a short period of time. At this time, if a fatal danger really happened, Lin Sun only had one solution, and that was to release the nirvana fire of order suppressed in the abyssal sword cauldron. However, Lin Sun wouldn't do this unless it was a matter of life and death. I like to see what's so mysterious about this blue stone. As he pondered, Lin Sun had already sat cross-legged on the blue stone. In an instant, a wonderful aura of the great way diffused and surged throughout his body, making his soul and mind clear, ethereal, and pure. Lin Sun's heart surged with an indescribable and wonderful feeling. It was as if he had returned to the origin of chaos, and his whole body was bathed in the great way. He kept his soul clear, stopped thinking about it, and calmed his heart to comprehend. After so many years, he had long had a direction for the great way in his heart. It was impossible to pursue a unique way since ancient times, and it couldn't be achieved overnight. He'd been thinking about his future path towards the Tao since many years ago, and he'd obtained an even deeper understanding during these years after he became an emperor. At this moment, along with Lin Sun comprehending the great way on the blue stone, he faintly felt as if the clouds had parted to reveal the sun, and he was suddenly enlightened. Numerous supreme great way inheritances transformed into numerous ancient characters that surged out and revolved around him, causing a dazzling rain of light to drown this place. When looked at from afar, numerous Tao characters densely covered the sky, and they seemed as if they were forged from immortal gold. They were dazzling and filled with complicated profundities, causing him to seem extraordinary like an immortal. Many years ago, he'd carried all sorts of inheritances with him. Yet up until now, he'd merely completely comprehended almost half of the profound sword scripture, the solitary destruction sword scripture, and the grand Tao furnace scripture. Moreover, he'd utilized this foundation to transform it into a part of his own furnace scripture. At this moment, along with his comprehension, all the profundities of the inheritance in his body surged into appearance, and they were like lively shoals of fish that were seen through by him one by one. His whole body was glowing, emitting bursts of Tao sounds, and it was majestic and dazzling. Vaguely, it seemed as if a furnace had appeared above his head, and various profundities of the inheritance were like Tao markings, floating and flickering in the furnace, resonating with his cultivation. Lin Sun didn't want to follow the path of the predecessors. He wanted to create his own Tao and create his own emperor scripture. At this moment, the furnace was steaming as if it could accommodate all the supreme profundities of the Great Way. After Lin Sun's continuous tempering and deduction, it faintly showed signs of completely fusing into a furnace. This was a miraculous transformation, especially when comprehending on this blue stone. It was as if he'd come to the chaos, and he could easily peep into the essence and profundities of various inheritances. For so many years, Lin Sun had spent most of his time on expeditions and trekking on the road of Tao, and he didn't have much time for seclusion. But Lin Sun thought that these experiences were the most precious experiences, and it was a crucial process of accumulation and precipitation. If he wanted to accommodate all the Tao of heaven and develop the law of the world, he couldn't build a chariot behind closed doors. Now, his footprints had begun from the ancient way of the starry sky and spread all over the road of the great Emperor realm. What he lacked was nothing more than a process of transformation and sublimation. The sound of chanting resounded in the hall filled with fairy mist. On the blue stone, Lin Sun's figure became more and more majestic, like a ruler sitting cross-legged. His black hair was loose, his eyes were closed in meditation, and his body was bright as if made of divine gold. In his body, there seemed to be a chanting of the Great Way, and it also seemed that various scriptures of the Great Way were resonating, revolving around him, and the Great Way was roaring constantly. At this moment, all the inheritances that Lin Sun had cultivated were roaring, profound, and unfathomable, and integrated into his whole body. Above his head, the furnace was shining brightly, roaring constantly, deducing all kinds of supreme profundities, and constantly integrating all kinds of power of inheritance controlled by him. All the scriptures and profundities were mixed together, evolving into an incomparably abundant nourishment of the Great Way, which was about to completely become a part of the furnace. This was his path, his Tao, and his Emperor's scripture, which was about to appear in the world. After a long time, in this Tai hall, suddenly, wind and thunder were raging, and strange phenomena appeared. From time to time, there were the roars of gods and demons, and the chanting of the Great Way. From time to time, all kinds of mysterious scriptures emerged, turned into flowers of the Great Way, and fluttered out of the furnace above Lin Sun's head. Later, his whole body glowed with a majestic atmosphere, like a furnace that could contain the mysteries of the Great Way in the world and suppress the past, present, and future. An indescribable majesty also diffused from Lin Sun, making him the ruler of all Tao and the supreme ruler of all Dharma. If such an incredible and horrible scene was reflected in the outside world, it would have caused a sensation in all heavens and made the world tremble. He was chanting scriptures, and he was about to appear in the world. At this time, in the white fairy mist of the hall, a mysterious jade archive loomed and floated quietly, as if it was paying attention to all the changes in Lin Sun's body. P.S. Yesterday, after the goldfish said that she had a fever, some people began to satirize and ridicule me, saying that it was an excuse to not break out. To be honest, I'm really disappointed. I said that I had a fever, but I didn't say that I wouldn't break out. Forget it, I won't talk about it anymore. I'll break out tomorrow, and I'll make 2 updates at noon. That's all. Chapter 2590. The cauldron roared and shone brightly. Lin Sun became more and more solemn and sacred. He sat still for several days. Later, all the mysteries of Tao were completely integrated into the cauldron and turned into a kind of primitive meaning, which became the nourishment of the Great Way Furnace scripture. In the past, it was the 100 scriptures in the furnace. But now, it was the 100 scriptures in the furnace. After being integrated to the extreme, it was sublimated into one and completely became an emperor scripture created by Lin Sun. Carry on the past and open up the future. The bursts of chanting, and so on all disappeared. The brilliance converged and everything calmed down. The lower 5 realms can be divided into a volume called Tao Building Scripture. The 9 realms of Longevity Calamity King Realm can be divided into a volume called Longevity Scripture. The Secrets of the Saint Realm can be divided into a volume called Saint Tao Scripture. The Quasi-Emperor Realm is the key to reaching the Emperor Realm. It can be divided into a separate volume called the Emperor Attaining Volume. The 9 realms of the Emperor Realm are like a natural chasm, called Emperor Road Scripture. It's a pity that there are still 2 realms left on the road of Emperor Realm, Lin Sun thought. Previously, when he smelted all kinds of inheritance power, he lacked the comprehension and mysteries of the 8th and 9th realms of the Emperor Realm. Although he had completely smelted and sublimated the Great Way Furnace Scripture, it was not really complete, because the Emperor Road Scripture still needed 2 realms to be perfected. Even so, Lin Sun had gained a lot from smelting the Scripture. Although he didn't break through in cultivation, his cultivation had been perfectly integrated. The creation of the Great Way Furnace scripture was like the extreme integration of Tao and Law, which made his understanding of Tao and Law get a rare transformation and sublimation. Whoosh! On the bluestone, Lin Sun opened his eyes. The severe injuries he had previously sustained and the depletion of his cultivation base had already been completely healed at this moment, and he was at his peak condition. The only trouble was that the 5 Tao forms in the 5 Viscera palaces were completely destroyed in the previous battle, leaving only various kinds of original power. It would take a long time to completely rebuild them. This also meant that at least in a short period of time, the 5 doppelgangers would not be of use. However, Lin Sun was not worried about anything. He even planned to take this opportunity to refine his 5 doppelgangers. As the saying goes, without destruction, there can be no construction. Lin Sun couldn't help but look forward to it. If the 5 doppelgangers built their Tao with the mysteries of the Great Way Furnace scripture as soon as they were rebuilt, how powerful would they be in the future? Whoosh! Suddenly, a beam of white light flashed in the distance. It was the mysterious jade archive of good fortune. However, this time it did not leave. Instead, it hovered there as though it was staring at Lin Sun. Lin Sun's heart thumped. He sat on a green rock and quietly looked at the good fortune jade archive. Before long, the good fortune jade disc suddenly buzzed softly. Almost at the same time, in the heaven-accessing place floating in Lin Sun's sea of consciousness, a piece of illusory, snow-white feather emerged. It was around the size of an infant's palm, and it seemed to be formed from strands of immortal light. It was pure, ethereal, and emanated a mysterious aura. This was the mysterious feather that was left behind after killing Wei Mingzi's divine soul in the 3rd stage of the Qingyun Dao, the 100 Battles Secret Realm. This was the first time this mysterious feather had appeared since he was a teenager. Whoosh! Before Lin Sun could react, the snow-white feather suddenly swept out of his sea of consciousness, turned into a strange symbol, and integrated into the good fortune jade disc in the distance. Clatter, the good fortune jade disc suddenly emitted a rain of light. As if it had found its own heart, it glowed with a brand new transformation. Vaguely, mysterious scenes of the law of immortals emerged, outlining a vast world of immortals. It was vast and boundless, with countless immortals living in it. There were immortal kings who could look down on all the heavens, and ancient gods and demons moving across the universe, commanding the wind and the clouds after a long time. All these scenes dissipated one by one. Looking at the good fortune jade disc again, it was crystal clear and flowing with mysterious light and shadow. Compared with just now, it had an indescribable charm and extraordinary spirituality. Lin Sun subconsciously reached out his hand and grabbed it. The good fortune jade disc turned into a beam of white light and fell into his palm. It was shining and extremely docile, without any resistance. Boom! At the same time, Lin Sun only felt a huge and mixed torrent coming out of the good fortune jade disc, which turned into a kind of memory power. This was the memory that belonged to the good fortune jade disc after the end of the era. In the ruins, Wei Mingzi held the good fortune jade disc in his hand and said coldly, "The entire Tai immortal sect is dead, and only the demon in the evil sealing well is still alive." What a great irony! Not far away, there was an ancient well, steaming with mysterious mist. Vaguely, there was a roar from the depths of the ancient well, which made people's hearts palpitate. On the side of the ancient well, there was a sword, stained with blood, inserted diagonally. "Old man Dishi, you have been suppressed by the Tai immortal sect for 1,000,000 years. Now that the era has been destroyed, everything in the past has been destroyed in the calamity. In other words, only you and I survive in the Tai immortal sect." Wei Mingzi looked at the ancient well and said indifferently, "If you take out the blood of your heart that contains your cultivation and will and give it to me, I can give you a chance to get out of trouble and serve me." In the depths of the ancient well that was filled with primal chaos, a low and cold voice sounded. Wei Mingzi, the 15th generation successor of the Tai immortal sect, a legend who has stepped into the immortal king stage after cultivating for 10,000 years, and is regarded as the successor of the next sect leader of the Tai immortal sect. Without waiting for him to finish, Wei Mingzi smiled. Wrong. I am now the sect leader of the Tai immortal sect. Moreover, I plan to establish the Tai sect in this new era. Old Dishi, if you choose to surrender, you will be the founding hero of the Tai immortal sect. The cold voice that was called Old Dishi said unhappily, Why don't you listen to me finish? All right, go ahead. Wei Mingzi said, I say you're nothing. Dishi said with disdain, When I was conquering the world, you little thing wasn't even born yet you dare to shamelessly ask me to serve you? When the era is over, the seal on the evil ceiling, has already loosened. When his strength recovers, it will be the day he escapes. Why would he need you to save him? Wei Mingzi's face suddenly became extremely gloomy. At this point, the scene suddenly changed. Clang! A new scene appeared. The sword that was stabbed diagonally at the side of the mysterious ancient suddenly flashed out with a shocking willpower and transformed into a man with a handsome appearance. It was the headmaster of the Tai immortal sect that Lin Sun had seen in an illusion before. Headmaster. Wei Mingzi was shocked. Wei Mingzi, you disappoint me so much. From now on, this jade plate of fate will not belong to you. In the future, it will be given to the predestined one. The headmaster of the Tai immortal sect said and made a stroke with his fingers. The jade plate of fate, which was originally controlled by Wei Mingzi, suddenly broke free and disappeared in a white rainbow. No! Losing the jade disc of fate made Wei Mingzi's eyes almost pop out, and he roared, Old thing, the era has been destroyed, and you still want to go against me. In that case, I will completely destroy your willpower. Boom! He took action at once. Then, all kinds of scenes could not be seen. Only Wei Mingzi shouted almost crazily, Old thing, as long as I control the secret key of the jade plate of fate, no one could get the jade plate of fate. Here, the scene completely dissipated. Witnessing all this, Lin Sun thought of a lot of things, and his expression was uncertain. After a long time, he finally understood a few things thoroughly. First of all, after the era was over, in addition to Wei Mingzi of the Tai immortal sect who was still alive, the devil who was sealed in an ancient well by the Tai immortal sect also survived. The devil was called Dishi, and he had been suppressed for millions of years. Secondly, an immortal sword called Tai was suppressed on the side of the ancient well, in which there was a residual belonging to the headmaster of the Tai immortal sect. It was this willpower that made Wei Mingzi lose control of the jade plate of fate. But in Wei Mingzi's hand, there was only a secret key that could control the jade plate of fate. When the Lord of Tongtian appeared here, the reason why he suppressed Wei Mingzi's primordial spirit in the heaven accessing place after defeating Wei Mingzi was for this key. Unfortunately, the Lord of Tongtian didn't get what he wanted. After countless years, as he broke into the heaven accessing place and killed Wei Mingzi's primordial spirit, he accidentally obtained a mysterious feather. This thing was obviously the key to control the jade plate of fate. The moment he, Xiang Xiangyun, and Euducio entered this forbidden area, the jade plate of good fortune had clearly sensed the mysterious feather on his body. That was why it had appeared and brought them all the way into the ruins of the Tai immortal sect. The danger on the 99 stone steps was very likely to be a test for him. If he couldn't get through, he wouldn't be able to enter the Tai immortal palace, and he was doomed to be unable to know all kinds of things that happened in the past. Naturally, he couldn't get the jade plate of fate. Understanding this, Lin Sun couldn't help but be more curious. What secrets were hidden in the jade plate of fate that made Wei Mingzi unwilling to hand over the secret key, and the Lord of Tongtian always thinking about it? Lin Sun remembered what the headmaster of the Tai immortal sect had said. This treasure was passed down by the patriarch of our sect, and it contains the supreme and unfathomable power of the Order of the Immortal Tao. The Order of the Immortal Tao. Lin Sun's gaze changed as he looked at the jade plate of fate in his palm. He tried to pour his own power into the jade plate of fate. Suddenly, a world of the immortal Tao unfolded in front of him like a picture scroll. It was vast, beautiful, and vast, divided into 4,900 continents. Each continent was comparable to a macro world, inhabited by hundreds of millions of living beings. All kinds of mysterious and unfathomable rules of the immortal Tao were dense and circulating, maintaining the operation of the entire world of the immortal Tao. Obviously, this was a scene that belonged to the world of the immortal Tao in the last era, but Lin Sun could only see it, but he couldn't comprehend it or experience it. At this moment, the Nirvana order in the abyssal sword cauldron appeared quietly. Like a strange lotus, it bloomed with wisps of order aura and covered the jade plate of fate. Chapter 2591. In an instant, the creation jade plate buzzed as if it had sensed danger. A dazzling rain of light surged out and tried to resist the power of the Nirvana order. But soon it calmed down, because the Nirvana order did not harm it. On the contrary, as the Nirvana order circulated, the creation jade plate clearly obtained some kind of benefit. It was as if it had experienced a nurturing and nirvana, and it glowed with astonishing spirituality. This process lasted for a full 8 minutes, until the Nirvana order turned into a lotus pattern and disappeared into the abyssal sword cauldron. The creation jade plate trembled slightly, and a rain of light sprayed out, transforming into an illusory figure. It was as if the treasure passed down from the Tai, celestial sex ancestor, had awakened its dormant spirit after receiving the help of the Nirvana power. Lin Sun could not help but be stunned. Could it be a spirit of order like the heavenly Tao spirit Wu Shuang in the origin world? The illusory figure was about to take form, but it seemed to lack power and gradually dimmed. It turned into a rain of light and disappeared into the creation jade plate. Lin Sun was speechless. What was going on? He turned the creation jade plate over and over again, but he could not sense anything. After thinking for a while, Lin Sun took out the abyssal sword cauldron. Sure enough, he found that there was a world of immortal Tao in the world formed by the Nirvana order. It was vast and beautiful, enshrouded in celestial light, and the scenes of 4,900 continents appeared one after another. All sorts of rules and powers of order floated about. It was the same as the secrets of the netherworld that he had gathered previously. The Nirvana order was like a huge cauldron. There was a world that seemed like reincarnation, the great wall of the starry sky. These scenes had already existed when Lin Sun had entered Nirvana of freedom. And now, there was also the netherworld world that had been established in the vast land under the great wall of the starry sky, as well as the immortal Tao world that had just appeared. Apart from that, there was also a young girl in white who seemed to be sleeping. She looked like a 13 or 14-year-old girl, young, elegant, and lovely. But she was the heavenly Tao order spirit of the previous era in the origin world. Her name was Wu Shuang, and she had survived the 5-decade Tao calamity during the destruction of the era. According to Cyan Sparrow, in the eternal true world, only the rarest 9th grade of heaven rank order energy could give birth to the spirits of order. Wu Shuang was undoubtedly such an existence. Initially, Lin Sun had thought that the Jade Disc of Fate would also give birth to such a spirit of order. However, it was obvious that even though he had obtained the benefits of the Nirvana power of order, he was unable to condense that illusory figure in the end. There were only 2 possibilities. Firstly, there was originally a spirit of order that belonged to the immortal Tao world within the Creation Jade archive, but for some unknown reason, it had always been dormant within it. The other situation was that a spirit of order was being nurtured in the Good Fortune Jade Disc, but because it didn't have enough power and the timing wasn't right, the spirit body couldn't be transformed. Either way, it meant that Lin Sun couldn't use the Jade Archive of Fate, at least for now. I paid the price of almost having my 5 clones obliterated, but all I obtained was a useless treasure. Lin Sun's lips twitched imperceptibly. Actually, he was clearly aware that only by stepping foot onto the eternal path would he be able to comprehend and control the energy of order. Obviously, the profundities of the good fortune jade disc were related to the energy of order, and it was something that he was unable to utilize at his current realm. After thinking for a moment, Lin put away the jade plate of fate, got up from the blue stone, and walked out of the hall. A few days passed. Xiang Xiuyun and Yu Duqiu had been waiting for Lin Sun, but they couldn't help showing a touch of worry between their eyebrows. They were worried about Lin Sun. I don't know how Brother Lin is doing. Yu Duqiu sighed softly. Immediately, he widened his eyes and said in surprise, "He's out. He's out." Xiang Xiuyun looked up and saw Lin Sun's tall figure appearing in front of Tai Hall on the 99 stone steps. Brother Lin, Xiang Xiuyun's heart, which had been hanging in the air these days, was relieved, and a touch of joy appeared on her white and delicate face. Lin Sun walked down the stone steps step by step. The corpses around him all turned into dust and drifted away as he walked. When Lin Sun arrived at the ground, there was no one on the 99 stone steps, and there was no frightening corpse. Seeing this scene, Xiang Xiaoyuan and Yu Duqiu vaguely understood. "Both of you, please follow me." Lin Sun didn't explain anything and took the two back to the stone steps. After mastering the jade disc of fate, he had already mastered this Tai relic. As long as he had this treasure, he didn't have to worry about any danger. Xiang Xiaoyuan and Yu Duqiu followed him closely. They walked up the steps and arrived at Tai Hall. Until now, Lin Sun told them some of his experiences after entering this place, and he didn't conceal the fact that he had subdued the jade disc of fate. This treasure belongs to Brother Lin. If it were us, I'm afraid we wouldn't have a chance to enter this hall at all, Xiang Xiaoyuan said with emotion. Yes, yes. Yu Duqiu nodded repeatedly. Lin Sun smiled and pointed to the blue stone not far away, saying, "Sitting on it has an immeasurable magical effect on refining your cultivation. You can have a try." Xiang Xiaoyuan was the first to step forward. The moment she sat cross-legged on the blue stone, she was shocked and felt the magic of this blue stone. Seeing this, Lin Sun didn't disturb them and left the hall alone. In this Tai relic, in addition to this hall, there were many other places that had not been explored. Lin Sun planned to go there. Unfortunately, Lin Sun found nothing along the way. Finally, he returned to the front of the 99 stone step and sat cross-legged casually. He planned to leave this place after Xiang Xiaoyuan and Yu Duqiu came out. This was not the only forbidden area in this relic of the Tao. There were many incredible opportunities and treasures in other places. But Lin Sun was not interested in them. He didn't forget that Dugi Yuran once told him through Peng Tianxiang that unpredictable disasters were likely to break out in this relic of the Tao, and even the whole Tai city would be affected. Now, Lin Sun just wanted to collect enough Emperor-level evil spirits as soon as possible and then leave as soon as possible. A few days later, well, I'm really lucky. I didn't encounter any danger along the way, which was completely beyond my initial expectation. Suddenly, a conversation sounded in the distance. It said that this place is the residence of a Taoist orthodoxy in the last era. Just by looking at the sword mark in the sword cleansing pool, we can see how powerful this orthodoxy was. Hey, there's someone there. Before the conversation died away, a group of men and women came over. When they saw Lin Sun sitting cross-legged alone, they couldn't help but be stunned. But when their eyes followed the 99 stone steps and saw the Tai Hall at the highest point, their eyes burst out with extraordinary splendor. Immediately, a beautiful woman smiled faintly and said, "Friend, could it be that the opportunity here has already been obtained by you?" And the other man, who was obviously also a central figure, was covered with a divine halo. He smiled and said, "Obviously, it must be so. Well, hand over the treasures you have, and you can leave." Lin Sun opened his eyes for meditation. There were more than 10 figures in this group, and they were all emitting a threatening aura. Among them, there were many Ninth Realm ancestors and several peerless great emperors, especially the man at the head, who was wearing a silver robe and was covered with a divine halo, had a vast aura, and was impressively an 8th-level great emperor. And beside him, there was also an old man holding a sword. He looked old, but his whole body was emitting the power of an ancestor. There was no doubt that this group of people was very terrible. What are you waiting for? Someone rebuked impatiently. The silver-robed man at the head ordered, "You take action first, and go to the hall above the stone steps to investigate." When he said these words, he didn't look at Lin Sun at all. His eyes were full of divine light, and he stared at the Tai hall, feeling that it was extraordinary. Yes. Immediately, a group of people walked out and intended to fly to the Tai hall. As for Lin Sun, who was sitting cross-legged there, he was ignored by them. At this moment, Lin Sun stood up, and a majestic and boundless aura spread out from his body, blocking in front of those people. "You don't recognize me?" Lin Sun glanced at the crowd with a strange look in his eyes. Immediately, someone sneered, "Who are you? What qualifications do you have for us to recognize you?" Many people showed a playful look. Some people frowned and looked at Lin Sun doubtfully, trying to find out something. When he saw this, Lin Sun immediately understood that these fellows really didn't recognize him. If it was those cultivators who had seen him slaughter in Tai City, they probably wouldn't dare speak to him like this at all. No matter where you come from, even if you are the king of heaven, you can't leave here alive if you don't hand over your treasures today. An old man snorted coldly. "Really?" Lin Sun laughed. He waved his sleeve, and a handful of light rain whistled out, turned into a brilliant sword chi, and suddenly chopped at the old man. The old man took the attack head-on, activating his secret method, and his body burst out with terrible power. But just in an instant, his resistance was crushed by the sword rain like a piece of paper, and his whole body was chopped to death, with a rain of blood flying everywhere. This scene caused everyone's expression to change. "You're courting death." The silver-robed man's face darkened. Beside him, the old man holding a sword suddenly rushed out and slapped Lin Sun's head with a sharp light in his turbid eyes. This was an emperor ancestor. It seemed to be a casual slap, but in fact, it contained unimaginable power. However, Lin Sun stretched his body and slapped out casually. Boom! The terrible wave broke out like a tsunami, making the whole world shake in an instant, and the light rain swept out like a tide. The old man holding a sword staggered back a few steps, and his old face completely changed. Is the ancestor of a Tao so weak? Lin Sun's eyes were deep and indifferent. When everyone's face changed, suddenly, a scream broke through the field. "It's him, Lin Sun from Starry Ancient Path. P.S. Thank you for your reward, bandit brother. I'll send 2 consecutive chapters first, and I'll send 3 consecutive chapters before 6 o'clock in the evening. If you have a monthly ticket, please smash it." Chapter 2592. Lin Sun. This name seemed to have a magical power. It made the silver-robed man and others feel as if they were struck by lightning. Their hearts went cold, and their faces changed drastically. Even if they hadn't seen Lin Sun's true face, who didn't know what kind of ferocious existence this name represented? The silver-robed man and others felt bitter in their mouths. They didn't expect that their luck would be so bad that they would encounter such a ruthless person in a forbidden area. Lin Sun, the forces of Wan, Hung, and Luo are searching for you in this relic of the Tao. You don't want to cause any more trouble at this time, do you? The silver-robed man took a deep breath and said calmly, "Let's each take a step back. You can leave now without leaving behind your treasures." What answered him was Lin Sun's overbearing punch. Boom! An earth-shattering sound rang out. The silver-robed man was furious. He had an extraordinary background and had his own reliance. Although he didn't want to offend Lin Sun, it didn't mean he was afraid. "Go!" the silver-robed man shouted. A bright flying sword flashed out, shining with a frightening sharpness, and tore the sky. Clang! The flying sword was directly destroyed by the punch and flew out fiercely. The punch didn't lose momentum and hit the silver-robed man. The silver-robed man felt as if he was hit by a mountain. Blood sprayed from his mouth and nose, and his body staggered. He was almost suppressed by the punch. The old man holding the sword next to him saw that the situation was not good. He took out an ancient sword in his arms for the first time. The peerless sword chi emerged with a terrible phenomenon, as if it was going to split the universe. But Lin Sun stepped forward and punched again without even looking at him. Clang! The ancient sword buzzed and trembled violently. The old man's chi and blood surged as astonishment flashed in his eyes. Only when he really fought with Lin Sun did he find that the latter was simply a heaven-defying monster. No wonder he could go head-on against and suppress Wen Taolu. He was indeed too powerful. Let's go. Almost at the first time, the old man grabbed the silver-robed man and fled to the distance. Lin Sun's strength was beyond their imagination. Seeing this, the others didn't dare to stay and chose to escape at the first time. How could Lin Sun let them go so easily? He immediately took out the abyssal sword cauldron. Hundreds of millions of rays of light fell like a galaxy, shining and flowing. He rushed out in a straight line, displaying his own cultivation. Boom! In merely an instant, a few figures that had just fled were annihilated. Their bodies exploded apart one by one, while their souls collapsed and dispersed. This scene caused the others to feel their scalps go numb, and they were completely terrified. They finally knew they'd bitten off more than they could chew, and all of them fled desperately. Lin Sun's invincible blow shattered their will to fight. Each and every one of these cultivators had extremely powerful combat prowess, and their origins were extraordinary. Otherwise, they would not have dared to enter the ruins of the Great Path to train. But today, they had been defeated along the way. Puff, puff, puff. As Lin Sun chased and killed, one figure after another fell down. They were harvested like weeds without any resistance. It wasn't that they weren't strong enough, it was just that their opponents were too strong. After comprehending the Tao on that limestone for a few days, Lin Sun had completely fused with all the supreme inheritances he'd shouldered, and his cultivation had obtained a shocking improvement. At this moment, he even dared to go head-on against the Tao ancestor. So how could he possibly care about the others? All along the way, only the silver-robed man and a few others remained, and their group directly charged out of the entrance to the restricted area. However, Lin Sun didn't give up. When he just walked out of the entrance and arrived at the enormous mountain range that was guarded by an ancestral, rank evil spirit, an unexpected change occurred. Bang! A wave of terrifying might swept out from all directions, blotted out the sky, and directly enveloped the silver-robed man and the others that had just escaped. In merely an instant, a few people suffered calamity and were instantly annihilated on the spot. Only the silver-robed man and the old man that possessed the cultivation of an imperial ancestor were resisting stubbornly, but their expressions were extremely unsightly, while their eyes almost split apart from rage. This sudden attack had obviously caught them off guard. Lin Sun looked over. He saw that there were 6 ancestral rank evil spirits lying in ambush in the area near the huge mountain range. Some had 3 heads and 6 arms, green faces and fangs, and their bodies were as tall as a mountain. Their bodies were covered with strange tattoos and totems that were like flowers. Some had scarlet eyes, dressed in a scarlet robe, and were as thin as bamboo. They held a scarlet halberd in their hands, and as they waved it, endless scarlet lightning splashed out. Some were in the form of fierce birds, with pitch-black, iron-like wings like clouds hanging in the sky, and a pair of sharp claws entwined with a strange torrent of destruction. Some, each of them glowed with the terrifying aura belonging to the ancestral rank, and as if they had spiritual intelligence, they besieged the silver-robed man and the old man together. In a flash, the silver-robed man and the old man were both injured, and they couldn't resist at all. Even if they used their trump cards and treasures, it was difficult for them to break out of the encirclement. Typhone, Imomu, you go kill that person. Suddenly, a small snake that was as thin as a chopstick and as red as blood noticed Lin Sun's appearance and immediately issued an order. Immediately, 2 ancestral rank evil spirits rushed towards Lin Sun. A tall and slender man, covered in black flames, wielded a huge black sword. The other was a fierce beast made of white bones. Its body was like a mountain ridge, and it looked like a tyrannosaurus, but it had a pair of huge bone wings, and a pair of eyes were burning with green flames. Boom! The man holding the huge sword came across the sky. The sword light was like anger, cutting through the sky, and the sky was filled with a terrible torrent of black sword chi, rumbling down. The fierce beast made of white bones stretched out a huge claw, burning with a fierce green flame, and slapped it fiercely. This expanse of the heavens and the earth shook and fell into complete chaos. The mountains in the vicinity collapsed, and collapsed while numerous gorges that seemed like spider webs split open on the ground. In the face of such a pincer attack, Lin Sun ran the way of the netherworld at the first time and fought it head-on. Clang! With a loud explosion, the huge sword was shaken to the point of trembling. The man's figure shook for a while, and the black flames rolled all over his body. He was almost smashed into the void. Crack! One of the huge claws of the fierce beast was smashed into pieces, and it let out a shocking roar in pain. Netherworld! Damn it! How can such a great Tao still exist? The man holding the huge sword cried out in shock and anger. The fierce beast's green flame pupils revealed a bewildered expression. The Tao of the Netherworld? He must have killed King Feitua, who was guarding this place. In the distance, the little blood-colored snake spoke in an icy, cold voice. Meanwhile, the old man that was covered in injuries suddenly roared. "Young master, I'll send you off." Boom! His body suddenly erupted with a terrifying rain of the great Tao, and it seemed as if it was burning. He actually disregarded his own safety and suddenly charged forward, blasting back a 3-headed and 6-armed ancestor realm evil spirit. With a flick of his sleeve, a rift was suddenly torn open in space, and the old man grabbed the silver-robed man and directly sent him out. Pooh! A blood-colored halberd whistled over, and it chopped off the old man's head. On the other hand, the 3-headed and 6-armed ancestor realm evil spirit at the side used its 6 large hands to grab the old man's body, and then it suddenly exerted force and actually tore the old man's body apart, causing blood to rain down like a waterfall. When they were about to chase after the silver-robed man, the little blood-colored snake said in an icy, cold voice, "Kill this person first. I suspect that the seal of the era is in his possession." As it spoke, it transformed into an extremely gorgeous wisp of blood-colored lightning that vanished into thin air. In the next moment, it appeared mysteriously before Lin Sun, and it struck fiercely towards the center of Lin Sun's brows. It was unbelievably swift. Clang! The abyssal sword cauldron appeared at the first possible moment. Even though it blocked the attack of the little blood-colored snake, it shook Lin Sun to the point his figure stopped, and he couldn't help but be shocked. The little blood-colored snake looked inconspicuous, yet its strength was extremely terrifying. Kill! At this moment, the tall figure with 3 heads and 6 arms and the blood-robed figure had already charged over, and their might was more terrifying than the other. An entire 6 ancestor realm evil spirits. Such a lineup caused Lin Sun's heart to jerk, and his expression became serious. He exerted his cultivation and didn't dare slack off in the slightest. Bang! This expanse of the sky seemed as if it was about to collapse. Terrifying might swept out like an ocean, and the scene of destruction appeared everywhere. Deeply besieged, Lin Sun couldn't break out of the encirclement for a while. In reality, even if the one Tao ancestor was here, he wouldn't be able to resist such a calamity at all. The disparity in strength was too great, and he had no chance of victory at all. Although Lin Sun was extremely conceited, he didn't think he could resist such a siege in a head-on confrontation. Even if the Netherworld Grand Tao innately countered these evil spirits, it was still slightly lacking when facing 6 ancestor realm ferocious beings. Seeing the increasing pressure, Lin Sun did not dare to hesitate. But when he was about to use the quietus fire of order, suddenly his heart skipped a beat. He recalled the good fortune jade disc. It had once suppressed an ancestral realm evil spirit that was like a withered vine, and it absorbed and devoured all of its energy, causing it to seem extremely formidable. The next moment, Lin Sun took out the jade plate of fate and held it in his hand. The snow-white jade archive was filled with obscure and mysterious light rain of the Great Way. Epic seal. The blood-colored snake cried out, seemingly incomparably excited. The treasure that our emperor wanted was indeed obtained by him. The other progenitor realm evil spirits also became excited. Lin couldn't help but be surprised. Epic seal? Could it be that this good fortune jade disc had other secrets? But at this moment, the good fortune jade disc didn't move at all. It was far from being as psychic as Lin Sun had seen before, and it could take the initiative to kill the enemy. But Lin Sun didn't have the time to think too much. Boom! The three-headed and six-armed figure suddenly charged over. Its 6 arms waved, and its 6 large hands grabbed at Lin Sun fiercely like a cage that covered the sky. While Lin Sun operated the abyssal sword cauldron, he suddenly lifted the good fortune jade disc and smashed it out like a brick. Amidst the earth-shattering sound of collision, the three-headed and six-armed figure's terrified cry suddenly resounded. Under the attack of the good fortune jade disc, it actually released a terrifying, devouring force that swallowed its entire arm, instantly refining it. The three-headed and six-armed figure had become 3 heads and 5 arms. This scene shocked the other progenitor realm evil spirits, as it seemed to have exceeded their expectations. Lin Sun's spirits were lifted. Although the good fortune jade disc wasn't as psychic as before, it was obvious that the power it possessed was a fatal threat to these progenitor realm evil spirits. Chapter 2593. Realizing this, Lin Sun launched an attack at once. Boom! His body glowed as the abyssal sword cauldron took on an indestructible defensive form, enveloping his entire body in billions of rays of light. On the other hand, he swung the creation jade disc in his hand and unleashed peerlessly swift attacks. Bang, bang, bang. A wave of dense and intense explosions resounded, and then a wave of furious roars that were accompanied by cries of pain resounded. The 6 ancestor realm ferocious spirits were more or less struck by the good fortune jade archive, losing their arms and legs. Some had their chests smashed, directly having a hole devoured. The skeletal ferocious beast was in an even worse state. A section of its spine was broken, and it almost fell from the sky. It was indeed feasible. Lin Sun's eyes became brighter. The netherworld Tao he executed innately countered these evil spirits, and coupled with the might of the fortune jade disc, it was simply like he possessed a great weapon of slaughter that was all-conquering and all-powerful. Quick! Kill him, kill him! The blood-colored snake hissed angrily as a terrifying blood-colored halo rose from its body. Its aura was so strong that it seemed to be able to throw the universe into chaos. Bang! Lin Sun raised the jade disc of fate and smashed it viciously on the body of the blood-red snake. The latter shrieked. Although it tried to flee at the first moment, a section of its tail was still refined by the jade disc of fate. It was in so much pain that its body contorted and it cried out repeatedly. These ancestral realm evil spirits realized that the situation was bad, and they exerted their entire strength as if they were fighting desperately with their lives on the line, and they seemed to intend to kill Lin Sun in one go. However, following a series of violent collisions and smashing sounds, one progenitor realm evil spirit after another was smashed away, unable to withstand the attacks of the good fortune jade disc at all. In ordinary times, without the jade plate of fate and the power of the netherworld, Lin Sun could not have such power only by his own fighting power. But at this moment, it was clearly different from usual. In a flash, boom! The bone ferocious beast was shattered by the fortune jade disc, causing its entire body to be covered by a vast expanse of white and obscure rain of light. It was instantly refined and seemed to have transformed into nourishment that was devoured by the fortune jade disc. And Lin Sun got a Tao-containing pearl. His spirits were high, and he grew more and more valiant as he fought. He seemed to possess an imposing aura of sweeping through the world. The other ancestral realm evil spirits were horrified when they saw this, and they didn't dare continue fighting and chose to flee at the first possible moment. The blood-red snake was shocked and furious. If you can't obtain the seal of the era and my emperor finds out about it, you won't be able to survive. Bang! Lin Sun charged over with a good fortune jade archive in his hand. He immediately smashed the little blood-colored snake into a pulp. As light rained down, even its corpse was refined. It only took a moment. 2 of the 6 ancestor realm evil spirits had been killed. It was all thanks to the good fortune jade disc. When Lin Sun wanted to chase after that ancestor realm evil spirit again, it was already too late. What a pity. He held the Tao accumulation pearl left behind by the little blood-red snake, feeling a little unsatisfied. Xiang Xiyuan and Yu Duqiu were still comprehending the Great Path in the Creation Great Hall, so they needed someone to protect them. This was also the reason why Lin Sun didn't choose to chase after him. Lin Sun swept through the battlefield, and he noticed to his surprise that the ancestor realm old man that followed by the silver robe man's side earlier was carrying over 30 Tao accumulation pearls. Obviously, he'd obtained them from killing an emperor-rank evil spirit. Apart from that, there were also various divine materials and treasures. The value of all of them added up was rather shocking. After all, this was the wealth of a Tao ancestor. How could it be ordinary? This old man had been killed by those ferocious creatures, but the spoils of war had benefited Lin Sun. After doing this, Lin Sun turned around and walked into the entrance to the Tai ruins. When he was chasing after the silver robe man and his group, there were still many spoils of war that he hadn't cleaned up. On his way back, Lin Sun had also collected over a dozen storage treasures. Every storage treasure was rather abundant, and the value of all of them added up was already immeasurable. No wonder those ferocious creatures are addicted to fighting and killing. Just the rich spoils of war are an irresistible temptation. When Lin Sun arrived at the 99th step, he couldn't help but exclaim in his heart as he counted the spoils of war. Not to mention the emperor weapons, divine materials, elixirs, and treasures. Just the number of first-class eternal void source crystals had already reached 90 million. This was definitely a windfall. Moreover, there were many Tao accumulating pearls among the harvest this time, which were more than enough to pass the trial. Lin Sun didn't need to collect more. This undoubtedly saved him a lot of time. My emperor. Lin Sun sat cross-legged on the ground, thinking of the roar of the bloody snake before it died. Who is this, my emperor? Could it be the old man dish who was sealed in the sealing well? Lin Sun thought of the illusions he had seen before. He still remembered that it was a mysterious ancient well full of chaotic qi. Tai's sword was inserted obliquely on one side to suppress the well. In the depths of the ancient well, there was a terrible existence that had been sealed for millions of years in the last era. Wei Mingzi called him Dish, and even Wei Mingzi had tried to take Dish as a subordinate. But Dish ridiculed Wei Mingzi for overestimating himself. It could be imagined that Dish should be an unimaginably terrible figure, and the bloody snake was an evil spirit with the power of the ancestor realm. Perhaps only Dish, who was sealed in the depths of the ancient well, could be regarded as emperor by it. Thinking of this, Lin Sun's black eyes narrowed slightly. An old monster that had been sealed in the last era and survived the destruction of the era. How terrible would it be once it broke free? Is the disaster that Dugu Yuran mentioned, which was enough to affect Tai City, related to Dish? Lin Sun remembered that when he first entered Tai City, he had seen a terrifying figure that was tens of thousands of meters high, like a demon in the universe outside the sky. Merely a strand of energy had already surpassed the scope of the martial ancestor realm, and it shook the starry sky with a single roar. The might it emanated caused the restrictions that covered the sky above Tai City to be activated, and only then was it able to neutralize and disperse the destructive force. At that time, Lin Sun noticed that the demon-like figure was obviously struggling, trying to break free from some kind of sealing power. Now that he thought about it, the willpower projected in the universe was very likely to come from Dish, who was sealed in the depths of the ancient well. Moreover, Lin Sun remembered some rumors he had heard in Tai City. In the past years, many strong men who had entered the relics of the Tao had heard a fierce sword cry. It was just a wisp of sword intent, but it had turned into a mountain of corpses, a sea of blood, and a horrible scene of killing deities. It was extremely terrible. This made Lin Sun very suspicious that the sword cry and sword intent came from the Tai sword that was inserted in the side of the ancient well. At the thought of this, Lin Sun had a more and more bad feeling. According to Dougie Yuran, didn't it mean that Dish, who had been sealed since the last era, was very likely to break the seal and get out of the world? If so, the consequences would be absolutely unimaginably serious. No wonder Dougie Yuran reminded me to leave as soon as possible. I'm afraid she has already known some secrets in advance. At this moment, Lin Sun was more determined to leave the relics of the Tao as soon as possible. He only needed to wait for Xiang Xiaoyuan and Yu Duqiu. In the depths of a forbidden area, it was completely silent. Smoke and mist pervaded the air. An ancient well gushed out a cryptic mist that resembled primal chaos. On one side, a sword was inserted in the ground, and the sword was stained with blood. Your Majesty, the seal of the era has appeared, but a group of figures appeared. They were the 4 evil spirits of the ancestor realm who had been killed by Lin Sun before. After arriving here, they all knelt on the ground, humble like slaves. They didn't dare to hide anything at all and told everything that had happened before. After a long time, the ancient well suddenly rolled out rolling mist. Then, a cold voice full of great majesty sounded. Jaya is dead? Jaya was the name of the blood-red snake. Yes, a skinny figure in a blood-red robe said in a low voice. He was trembling all over, as if he was too frightened and uneasy. Unexpectedly, the voice in the ancient well didn't blame him. Instead, it sighed, "It's not his fault. I didn't tell him that the power of the Jade Disc of Fate is a fatal threat to those of us who have been suppressed here since the last era." "Who got the Jade Disc of Fate? Where is he now?" asked the voice in the ancient well. Bang! The blood-red robed figure raised his hand and tossed a silver-robed man to the ground. Shockingly, this was the fellow who had entered the Tai ruins and tried to rob Lin Sun. At that time, in the battle before the enormous mountain, it was an imperial ancestor by his side who had risked his life to open up a path for him. But obviously, he was still unable to escape completely. He was captured by these evil spirits of the ancestor realm, and he'd fallen into a coma and lost consciousness. "Your Majesty, this person is in cahoots with the fellow who holds the Jade Disc of Fate. He definitely knows about that fellow's background. As the blood-red robed figure spoke, he suddenly thought of something. Besides that, that fellow has grasped the energy of the Grand Tao of the Netherworld, and it innately restrains us. The Netherworld? The voice in the ancient well revealed a wisp of surprise. The era has been annihilated, and even the immortal world has been destroyed. How could the energy of the Netherworld's Grand Tao survive? Throw this person into the well. I'll devour his soul and extract his memories." Yes, the blood-red robed figure stood up, picked up the silver-robed man, and threw him into the distant ancient well. Hiss! A peerlessly terrifying strand of sword chi suddenly flashed out from the Tai sword that was stabbed diagonally into the side of the ancient well, and it instantly shattered the silver-robed man's body into powder. When this person's soul core was about to be obliterated, a ghastly pale hand suddenly stretched out from the wall of the ancient well, and it fiercely grabbed the silver-robed man's soul core. Bang! The sword chi slashed onto the ghastly pale hand and tore open a bloody mark that was deep to the bone. But in the next moment, the ghastly pale hand vanished. An extremely furious muffled groan resounded from the depths of the ancient well. "Tai sword, I'll absolutely crush you inch by inch when I escape." Subsequently, there was a wave of silence. It seemed like the terrifying existence at the depths of the ancient well was refining and searching the memories within the silver-robed man's soul core. After a long time, a low voice resounded from within the ancient well. "Lin Sun? He's only a peak 7th level emperor, and he's roughly equivalent to a congenital Saint Immortal from the last era, yet he possesses the strength to go against an imperial ancestor. Doesn't this mean that if he was alive during the last era, then he would possess the might to go against an immortal king?" Interesting. Chapter 2594. All the universe enlightened ancestral realm evil spirits lay prostrate on the ground while shivering. They weren't just fearful of the terrifying existence that was sealed within the well, they were even more fearful of the sword that was stabbed into the side of the well. The icy cold voice that was filled with a dignified tone resounded once more from within the well. It's time to activate the blood refinement formation. Strangely, an illusory figure appeared at the mouth of the well. It was like an old Taoist, and he sat cross-legged and was faintly visible within the mist. A wave of obscure chanting resounded from his mouth. Bang! 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 The bodies of all the universe enlightened ancestral realm evil spirits that lay prostrate on the ground instantly exploded into pieces, and they transformed into strands of gray and hazy torrents that ceaselessly surged towards the old Taoist. The grand unity sword that was stabbed into the ground at the side of the well droned rapidly, and it emanated peerless might as it ceaselessly struck down at the old Taoist. The old Taoist's body ceaselessly shattered before converging together, and he seemed like an undying body. No matter how the sword chi crisscrossed through him, he still sat cross-legged while chanting unfathomable scriptures. Rumble. The heavens and the earth were overturned in this restricted area. The rotting corpses and blood that had accumulated in the depths of the ground for countless years seemed as if they'd been drawn over, and they surged towards the well from all directions. The corpses were like torrents, while blood surged. Unimaginable corpses were actually buried beneath the ground of this restricted area, and they'd once been soaked in scarlet red blood. Now, these corpses and blood had transformed into a strange and terrifying force that was ceaselessly absorbed and devoured by the old Taoist who sat cross-legged above the well. What's that? What a terrifying scene. All the cultivators appeared at the edge of the restricted area, and all of them were alarmed by this scene, causing their expressions to change abruptly. The corpses formed a mountain, while the blood formed an ocean. Let's go. The hearts of some imperial ancestors trembled, and they noticed that the situation was bad at the first possible moment, so they turned around and left. But it was too late. A wave of obscure chanting resounded indistinctly, yet when it entered into the ears of these cultivators, it was like a peerless divine sword that easily minced their soul cores into pieces. Blood flowed out of their 7 orifices, and their eyes were dull. In an instant, it was as if they had turned into puppets, led by the chanting of scriptures towards the location of the ancient well. The emperor ancestor, who had the highest cultivation base, still had the strength to struggle. However, at this moment, he was horrified and felt as if he had fallen into an icy pit. The scene was just too terrifying. It was just a chant, yet it easily wiped out the souls of the great emperors. Even an imperial ancestor like him was heavily injured. No! Just as he was about to escape, the sound of chanting rushed into his primordial spirit. Instantly, the remaining primordial spirit exploded, and he completely lost consciousness. Then, like a puppet, his corpse walked towards the ancient well. Clang! Clang! A deafening sword cry resounded at the side of the ancient well, and a terrifying and monstrous sword pressure ceaselessly shot out and slashed. But the old Taoist who sat cross-legged above the ancient well seemed to be completely unaware of it. His body ceaselessly shattered and condensed, rising and falling, rising and falling. Only the sound of chanting continued to resound in this forbidden area. Tai City. In the City Lord's mansion, the City Lord by Jianshun, who was dressed in white and was as handsome as a young man, suddenly looked extremely solemn. In front of him stood a stone tablet. At this moment, bloody and terrifying scenes were projected on the stone tablet. There was an ancient well spewing chaotic mist, an old Taoist sitting cross-legged at the mouth of the well, chanting scriptures, an immortal sword inserted into the ground clanging and shooting sword chi all over the sky. Further away, there were corpses and blood coming from all directions like a sea. Is it really necessary to break the seal at all costs for the legendary sealed Emperor Shun of Evil God? Bai Jianshun's eyes were surging with a terrifying divine light. As the City Lord of Tai City, he was very clear about the origin of the Great Path relics, and he had read many ancient books about Tai City recorded in the past years. This allowed him to be even more clearly aware that this calamity that had survived from the last era had come from a terrifying being that was sealed within the ancient well, an existence that was like an evil god. Without hesitation, Bai Jianshan gave an order. Activate all the restrictions in Tai City and notify the entire city that there will be a great disaster in the near future. Those who want to leave now should leave as soon as possible. If you choose to stay in this city, I'll definitely do everything in my power to protect you. On this day, Tai City fell into an extremely oppressive atmosphere. Along with Bai Jianshan's order, the hundreds of thousands of natives that resided in the city and the countless cultivators that resided in the city were shocked and terrified in their hearts. Obviously, a great disaster was about to erupt and sweep through Tai City. The ninth pass of the Eternal that has stood here for countless years. Could it be destroyed? Go, we must leave Tai City. Can't you see that even the city lord Bai Jianshan isn't confident in defending this city? Many cultivators made a decision and rushed towards the 8th pass of the Eternal like tidewater. Because according to the information, the path to the 10th pass of the Eternal had long been blocked by the mysterious force produced by the Great Path relics. Only the 8th pass of the Eternal was the only way out. Some cultivators with extraordinary origins and formidable cultivations were extremely perturbed at this moment, and they chose to leave in the end without hesitation. But there were even more people that stayed in the city. It wasn't that they didn't want to leave, but it was utterly impossible for them to arrive at the 8th pass of the Eternal with their strengths, because there were numerous terrifying dangers along the way as well. In merely half a day, Tai City that used to be bustling and prosperous had actually become cold and desolate, and it wasn't bustling and clamorous any longer. Everyone in the city was in a state of panic, and the air was suffused with nervousness and terror. The only thing that made them feel at ease was that the city lord of the city lord's estate, Bai Jianshan, was still here. My dear niece, if you still don't leave, then I can only send you away. The city lord's estate. Bai Jianshan rubbed the space between his brows with slight helplessness. He'd already told Dugi Yuran about the severity of the situation, yet she actually didn't have the slightest awareness of leaving, and this caused him to be extremely troubled. This calamity hasn't really erupted, so there's no need to be nervous. I'm not someone that's easily frightened. Dugi Yuran was still disguised as a man, and she wore an azure robe as she sipped tea in a carefree manner, and there wasn't a trace of nervousness in her clear eyes. Not to mention this trial hasn't ended yet. Those fellows that are undergoing tempering in the Grand Dao ruins aren't afraid, so what's there for me to worry about? She smiled as she spoke. A gloomy expression appeared between Bai Jianshan's brows as he said, "In less than 3 days, those cultivators that are participating in the trial will surely notice the danger and return successively. But according to my inference, there probably won't be many that will truly be able to leave the Grand Dao ruins alive." Dugi Yuran's hand that held the teacup stopped, and she raised her eyes to look at Bai Jianshan as she said, "How many will it be?" Bai Jianshan laughed bitterly. How would I know? In his original inference, even though the calamity would erupt in the near future, it would absolutely not be so soon, and that was why he'd agreed to allow the trial to be carried out as usual. But who would have thought that what he observed today made him suddenly realize that the situation was not right, and that the calamity was likely to erupt ahead of schedule? This caught Bai Jianshan off guard. He didn't understand why the evil god Disen sealed in the depths of the ancient well would struggle at all costs and try to break the seal. There must be some changes in it. Dugi Yuran thought about it and said calmly, "Then I'll wait for 3 days before leaving." At the entrance to the Tai ruins, Lin Sun's breath once appeared here. If I'm right, he must have entered the forbidden area of this void portal. There was a hint of joy in Luo Ling's eyes. After searching for many days along the way, she finally sensed the breath belonging to the devouring abyss with the help of the strange jade stone. Nearby, the cultivators of the 3 immortal imperial clans, including Wentaolu, Hengxing Province, and Luoshin too, gathered together. Hearing this, they were all refreshed. There was a great battle here, and there are remnants of the breath of the evil spirits in the ancestor realm. It seems that Lin Sun also encountered some danger. When Taolu glanced around and captured many valuable clues at a glance. Let's enter this forbidden area and check it out. Hengxing Province said in a deep voice. Okay, let's do that. Everyone, be careful. Recently, there have been too many abnormalities in this great path relic, and disasters have occurred frequently. We must be vigilant. Luotian Tu warned. Immediately, everyone rushed into the void portal. On the 99-stone step, in front of Tai Palace, the figures of Xiang Xiaoyuan and Yu Duqiu finally came out. Both of them couldn't hide the joy on their faces. Obviously, the experience of enlightenment on the blue stone had benefited them a lot. Seeing this, Lin Sun immediately greeted them and said, I'm afraid we have to leave this great path relic immediately. Xiang Xiaoyuan and Yu Duqiu were stunned. Lin Sun had already told them his previous speculation without concealing anything. So, the evil spirits distributed in the great path relic, whether they are the Emperor realm or the Ancestor realm, are all controlled by the terrible existence in the ancient well. Yu Duqiu gasped, realizing the seriousness of the problem. A demon that has survived from the last era is indeed an immeasurable disaster. No wonder City Lore by Jinshan once said that this disaster is very likely to affect Tai City. If Brother Lin's speculation is right, the consequences are indeed too serious. Xiang Xiaoyuan's expression also became solemn. So, the most important thing now is to leave this great path relic as soon as possible. As Lin Sun spoke, he was about to take action. A cold voice suddenly sounded. Want to leave now? It's too late. The voice shook the world. In the distance, a group of figures whistled over. Each of them was aggressive and mighty. There were at least 40 to 50 people, and their lineup was strong enough to make anyone's heart tremble. The ones in the lead were Wen Taolu, Hengxing Province, Luotian Tu, and other Ancestor Realm existences. As they arrived, an indescribably huge killing intent also shrouded the world, causing the void to wail. Xiang Xiaoyuan and Yu Duqiu's expressions changed. They didn't expect that they would encounter such a killing disaster when they were about to leave. Lin Sun raised his eyebrows. He was also very surprised, but his heart was calm, and he even wanted to laugh. He was worried about not having a chance to get rid of these enemies. He didn't expect that they would take the initiative to come to him. P.S. 5 chapters have been completed. There will be another 2 chapters before 9 p.m. Chapter 2595. Swish. Everyone's gazes locked onto Lin Sun, who was on the 99th step. After killing this fiend, we might be able to obtain a Forbidden Zone's good fortune. Our efforts for so many days were not in vain. Hengxing Zhou's voice rumbled, filled with emotions. During these days, they had been rushing around in the great Tao relic with the sole purpose of killing Lin Sun. It was unknown how many fortuitous encounters they had missed along the way. The hearts of the others also fluctuated. After searching for so long, they finally managed to trap their target here. This feeling was like the clouds parting to see the moon. The two of you clearly know that this fiend is our enemy, yet you still chose to stick together with him. Are you courting death? When Taoyu's gaze swept past Lin Sun and landed on Xiang Xiaoyuan and Yu Duqiu. His expression was unfriendly, and his voice was filled with killing intent. The others also frowned, their gazes filled with disdain and coldness. Yu Duqiu's expression was gloomy. Xiang Xiaoyuan calmly spoke. Old fellow, isn't it just bullying others? I know how to do that too. As she spoke, she flipped her palm and a golden talisman rose, spinning in the air. A golden seal appeared in the air. Around the seal, boundless starry skies appeared, exuding boundless might. Grand starry sky, Tao seal. In an instant, the eyes of Wen Taolu and the others narrowed. You are from the 7th Heaven regions, Xiang Lu clan. Luotian Tu frowned. Xiang Lu clan. In an instant, the others also reacted, revealing looks of shock on their faces. This was an ancient clan that controlled the heaven-ranked order. Their foundation was extremely deep and ancient, and their clan treasure was the grand starry sky, Tao seal. Xiang Xiaoyuan's expression was calm. I won't go so far as to use my connections to intimidate others. Only now did Lin Sun know that Xiang Xiaoyuan's mother was from the undying Xiang Lu clan. Everyone realized that the problem was somewhat thorny. Their countenances turned heavy. Back then in Tai City, Bai Jianshan interfered, causing them to fail at the last moment when they surrounded Lin Sun. And now, a descendant of the Xiang Lu clan appeared, causing them to feel depressed in their hearts. We have no intention to offend the Xiang Lu clan, but if you interfere in this matter, don't blame us for being impolite. Luo Shintu's eyes were cold. Her figure was thin, and her hair was white like frost. She looked old, yet she exuded an imposing aura. What if I insist on interfering? Xiang Xiaoyuan asked calmly. Luo Shintu furrowed his brows. After a moment, he spoke. In that case, I can only capture you alive. After I kill that little trash, I will release you. Everyone's eyes lit up. Whether it is the One family, the Hung family, or the Luo family, none of them can compare with the Lu Xiang family, which is deeply rooted in the seventh heaven. But at this time, he was only facing a suspected clansman of the Xiang clan. As long as he did not harm the clansman's life, it was destined not to cause too much trouble. All of a sudden, Xiang Xiaoyuan's heart sank. She had thought that revealing her identity would be enough to intimidate the other party. At the very least, it would make the other party hesitate in taking action. Unexpectedly, in order to kill Lin Sun, it was obvious that the enemy was going to sacrifice everything. Just as Xiang Xiaoyuan was about to say something, Lin Sun stopped her and said, "It's just a group of people who are about to die. Don't talk nonsense with them." A dying man? Xiang Xiaoyuan and Yu Duqiu looked at each other. They could not help but smile bitterly in their hearts. This was not Tai City. Bai Jianshan would not intervene. Brother Lin, oh Brother Lin, why are you still so ambitious? Vile spawn, even at death's door, you still have such a sharp tongue. You are simply tired of living. From afar, after hearing Lin Sun's words, the expressions of the three immortal emperor clans sank. They were so angry that they almost laughed out loud. Luo Shintu stood out. His eyes were like lightning as he locked onto Lin Sun. He spoke with an expressionless face. The starry ancient path actually produced a powerhouse like you. You haven't become an emperor ancestor yet, but your cultivation base can already fight against the ancestor of a Dao. You're truly a peerless genius that only appears once in 1,000 years. If you lower your head now, I guarantee that not only will you live, I will also let you become a core member of the Luo clan. In the future, given your foundation, you will definitely be able to rule the world. The crowd was in an uproar. Wen Taolu and Hung Xing both had unsightly expressions. Luo Shintu's words clearly meant that he wanted to recruit Lin Sun. This caused them to feel incomparably conflicted. But before they could speak, Luo Shintu already spoke. The two of you, our previous agreement remains unchanged. In addition, if the two of you agree to the conditions I stated earlier, my Luo clan is willing to pay 10 times the price. 10 times. Luo Ling's eyes narrowed. This time around, the Luo clan had paid a huge price to cooperate with the Wan and Hung Liang clans. If he had to pay 10 times the price, that would simply make their Luo clan bleed. As for Wen Taolu, Hung Xing, and the others, their expressions all changed. The conditions Luo Shintu stated truly tempted them. In addition, they weren't worried that Luo Shintu would go back on his words. In the Sixth Heaven region, Luo Shintu was an extremely powerful character among Emperor ancestors. Her cultivation base was just a step away from touching the threshold of the undying Tao. She was proficient in all sorts of innate techniques and lightning arts. She was an outstanding character among those on the same level. Given her status, her words were like a golden rule. However, they couldn't help but feel puzzled in their hearts. Why did Luo Shintu insist on not killing Lin Sun? Could there be some hidden reasons behind this? Lin Sun, you have also seen it. This is your only chance. Luo Ling spoke. She also understood that it would be for the best if Lin Sun could stop fighting and make peace. As long as they could bring him back to the Luo clan, It would be equivalent to bringing back the grand devouring abyss innate talent. Do you really think I don't know what you guys are planning? Lin Sun sneered, his eyes gleaming with a deep light. I might as well tell you this. I will definitely pay a visit to the Luo clan. As for you guys, do you really think that victory is already in your grasp today? Luo Shin too furrowed her brows as lightning flashed in her eyes. Lin Sun, I've already tolerated you so many times, but you are still so stubborn. Since this is the case, I can only destroy you completely. At this moment, Luo Shin too was also enraged. Half of the Luo clan's bloodline flowed in Lin Sun's body, and he also had the grand devouring abyss innate talent. This was also the reason why she wasn't willing to kill him. But now, she had completely lost her patience. She planned to use a secret art to collect Lin Sun's corpse after killing him, trying to preserve his bloodline. You should have done this long ago. Wen Taolu and Hung Xing had cold expressions. The two of you, please watch the battle from his side. Lin Sun instructed in a low voice. After that, he took a step forward. His blood qi surged like waves. Rise! Luo Shin too stretched out her hand and grabbed. A purple pillar of lightning that pierced through the heavens, and the earth rose from her body. Amidst the lightning pillar, a purple bamboo staff that was 7 feet and 7 inches long appeared. It was translucent and sparkling, and it was surrounded by purple lightning bolts. Around the lightning bolts, there were also stars hovering and sinking, exuding an aura that could destroy the heavens and earth. Star-studded staff. This was a treasure that contained an undying substance. With a light tap, it had the might to split the astral river and expel the stars. It was incomparably terrifying. Wielding the star-studded staff, Luo Shen Tu's aura suddenly changed, causing the entire space to tremble. Above the heavens and earth, dense black clouds gathered as lightning flashed. It was as though chaos had arrived. On the 99th step, Lin Sun's black eyes were deep. The abyssal sword cauldron abruptly appeared, hovering above his head and circulating millions of rays of light. Xiang Xiaoyuan and Yu Duqiu felt their hearts tightening. Go! Luo Shin too lifted the star-studded staff and lightly tapped the air. Boom! A bolt of purple lightning appeared, directly transforming into a purple lightning dragon that was tens of thousands of meters long. Crackling sounds echoed in the air as a violent and destructive baleful qi engulfed the entire sky. This strike vividly displayed the might of an ancestor emperor. The power of that lightning was like a punishment from the heavens, ruthlessly smashing down on the world, wanting to erase Lin Sun from existence. Lin Sun leaped up, using the abyssal sword cauldron to block it. The cauldron shone with a bright light, exuding a heavy might that could suppress the past, present, and future. A series of explosive sounds rang out as the surging purple lightning blasted into the abyssal sword cauldron, generating a terrifying destructive force. However, the impact was neutralized in the blink of an eye. The abyssal sword cauldron was intact. Lin Sun was similarly unharmed. His white robes fluttered in the wind as his black hair fluttered in the wind. His tall figure was like a devil god, exuding a terrifying might that could engulf everything. Old Granny, back then in Tai City, I failed to kill you. This time around, I won't let you escape. Lin Sun let out a long howl as he took the initiative to attack. Boom! His feet stepped on the astral dipper. His might stirred up the wind and clouds, tearing apart the void. He was like a great abyss, moving horizontally as he rushed towards Luo Shin Tuesday. Everyone was taken aback. Lin Sun was too domineering. It was like he didn't even realize the situation he was in. He acted rampantly without any worries, causing everyone to be filled with disbelief. Swish! Luo Shin Tu's expression turned heavy. He waved his star-studded staff and welcomed Lin Sun head-on. In an instant, the two of them had already exchanged blows over 100 times, causing the heavens and the earth to fall into disorder, space to collapse, and scenes of chaos to appear. Very swiftly, a thunderous boom rang out as the abyssal Dao sword slashed out, causing Luo Shintu's body to tremble, and she was almost forced back. Her expression changed slightly. She could clearly sense that compared to the time in Tai City, although Lin Sun's cultivation base had yet to break through, his combat prowess was clearly a level stronger than before. Undoubtedly, in this forbidden zone, Lin Sun might have obtained some sort of good fortune, allowing his combat prowess to improve significantly. Swoosh! And at this moment, a figure flew over from the sky. It was none other than Rampage Prefecture. His body was majestic and imposing, as rough as a barbarian god. He held a beast-high drum that was covered in dense Dao runes. As he beat the drum, the terrifying sound of the drum transformed into golden turbulence that gushed towards Lin Sun. The sound of the drum caused the heavens to collapse and the earth to sink. It caused the gods and demons to wail in anguish, causing the sun and moon to lose their luster. The moment Lin Sun made his move, he used a swift and fierce killing move. This wasn't all. In the void, a beam of light shot over. When Talu also made his move, he held the bronze halberd in one hand and the devil's lamp in the other, releasing a towering might. Previously in Tai City, they had joined forces to kill Lin Sun. They were very clear how heaven-defying Lin Sun's strength was. He couldn't be treated as an ordinary person. Rumble. On the battlefield, dazzling torrents of the great Dao swept through the void. Thunder, drum sounds, halberd shadows, divine flames. With Lin Sun as the center, the area within 1,000 zhong was filled with these powerful ancestor realm energies. Every strike had the power to burn the heavens and destroy the world. Moreover, they contained various supernatural powers. When they were used together, even the emperor ancestor of the same realm would have to avoid them. In an instant, Lin Sun was heavily besieged. In front of Tai Palace, Xiang Xiaoyuan and Yu Duchio's hearts tightened, and their expressions changed abruptly. Chapter 2596. Lin Sun, you are too arrogant. If you listened to Elder Luo Shentu's words, you wouldn't have ended up like this. Luo Ling retreated far away, staring at Lin Sun, who was engulfed by the boundless energy. She couldn't help but sigh in her heart. 3 ancestors from the 6th heaven. How could the ordinary ancestors in the great 1,000 domains compare to them? Moreover, they were all peak-level experts in the Emperor Ancestor realm. In addition, they had all sorts of secret arts and supreme Emperor weapons. Who in the world could be their match? At this moment, the 3 immortal emperors who retreated far away, like Luo Ling, weren't idling. They took out all sorts of formation plates and started setting them up. They did this because they were worried that Lin Sun would use some special secret arts to escape. Brother Lin, Yu Duchio's eyes widened. Just as he was about to rush forward, Xiang Xiaoyuan stopped him. She berated, "If you go forward, you will be killed in an instant. Aren't you just throwing your life away?" Yu Duchio's face was gloomy. "But Brother Lin is in trouble. How can I just stand by and watch?" Yu Duchio's eyes flashed with a terrifying light. "I have some trump cards in my hands. We can fight." Xiang Xiaoyuan said, "Wait a moment. Let's use our trump cards together. We must be able to open a path of survival. If you make a move now, it will only cause the other party to be vigilant and on guard. Moreover, it will bring about a fatal disaster." She paused for a moment, and a resolute look flashed in her eyes. "At that time, I will bring up the rear. Given my identity, they won't dare to kill me. What you need to do is to escape together with Brother Lin. The further the better." Yu Duchio's heart trembled. How could he not understand that Xiang Xiaoyuan was clearly risking her life to help Lin Sun? Although you are talented, you don't know what's good for you. You won't be able to escape death. When Talia's expression was indifferent, he swept his bronze halberd horizontally, condensing a boundless light that swept across the battlefield. This strike seemed capable of splitting the heavens and earth. As for Luo Shintu, he didn't say a word. The star-studded staff in his hand struck out over 100 times in an instant. Instantly, countless stars whizzed out, intertwined with terrifying purple lightning, bombarding Lin Sun. Rumble. It was as if a heavenly punishment had struck down, as if an ancient thunder god had thrown out his divine whip. In the entire void, there were only tens of thousands of purple thunderbolts that were baring their fangs and brandishing their claws. The beast-skin drums of Traversal Province resounded without end, and they were dense like rain as they rumbled and resounded. They transformed into golden sound waves that covered the sky, and they restrained the soul and shook one's mental state. It was strange and terrifying. The three arch-ancestors were using their full strength. In an instant, Lin Sun fell into an unprecedented, desperate situation. Such a terrible power almost made him desperate. Xiang Xiaoyuan and Yu Duqiu clenched their fists. Boom, boom, boom. Countless attacks fell directly around Lin Sun. In an instant, the world was filled with terrifying energy. The surging power even penetrated down and hit the ground. The ground cracked open, and a huge, bottomless pit with a circumference of 10,000 zhang appeared. The 99 stone steps and the Tai Palace above them were affected by the impact and shook violently. Dead. Someone cried out in joy. Under such a horrible killing, even the Emperor Ancestor would die, let alone Lin Sun. Everyone looked up expectantly and saw an incredible scene. In the turbulence, Lin Sun's figure was faintly discernible. Lin Sun's figure was looming. Above his head, inside the abyssal sword cauldron, a jet-black divine flame, like an ancient fierce beast that had been suppressed for a long time, suddenly rushed out. Just the terrifying aura it released swept away the attacks of the three Emperor Ancestors. The Nirvana Flame of Order. It had finally appeared. This was a divine flame that belonged to the collapsed Order power during the destruction of the previous era. It was formed from countless Order fragments. Back then, with this flame, even Hung Tianxua, an Emperor Ancestor, was instantly incinerated. His body and soul were burned to ashes. Although it was only a wisp of it that was released at this moment, it was extremely terrifying and far exceeded people's imagination. As this wisp of the Nirvana Flame of Order appeared, the world seemed to have turned into a huge furnace. Endless violent scorching torrents suddenly burst out. The void was burned into a black hole. Light was twisted and broken, and the light rain of the great Tao was instantly evaporated. Wen Taolu, Traversal Province, and Luotian II's expressions changed. They felt a fatal danger and immediately used their trump cards. Duo, rise, appear. A green landscape painting, a jade seal that was overflowing with light, and a bronze umbrella that was surrounded by lightning were activated by Wen Taolu and the others at the first possible moment. These treasures were extremely rare and precious. They were the real trump cards. They would not use them unless it was a life-and-death situation. Boom! The world was completely submerged by the terrifying light of treasures. It was dazzling and blazing to the extreme. The surging power gathered into a raging sea, surging violently. Just a strand of that might was able to shatter the sun and moon and pierce through the sky. Just looking at it from afar made everyone's scalp numb and their bodies tremble. It was too terrifying. They couldn't get close at all. Otherwise, they would undoubtedly die. But in just an instant, the dazzling and resplendent glow of treasures and the surging and violent torrents of energy seemed as if they were being incinerated and evaporated. Expanse after expanse of them withered and dispersed into ashes. They could vaguely see that Lin Sun, who was trapped in the violent power, was still alive. How is this possible? Luo Ling and the others widened their eyes in disbelief. Lin Sun survived the attack of so many powerhouses. This was completely out of everyone's expectations. Could it be that wisp of black flame? Many people's hearts trembled. What shocked them even more was that at this moment, the three Emperor Ancestors, Wen Taolu, Hung Xingzhou, and Luotian II, were roaring in anger. They looked extremely pained, and their faces were extremely ugly. They saw that the treasures they had taken out were all damaged. A burnt hole appeared on the cyan landscape painting, and the jade seal that was overflowing with colorful light dimmed, with burn marks appearing on it. The bronze umbrella that was surrounded by lightning was only left with a handle. Xiang Xiaoyuan and Yu Duqiu in the distance couldn't help but be stunned. That wisp of black flame was actually so terrifying. The order flame, when Taolu whispered. His face was extremely ugly and ashen. Kill. I want to kill him. Hung Xing Zhou roared. His heart was bleeding because his trump card was damaged. Indeed, I can't wait to eat his flesh. Luo Shintu's eyes were also burning with anger and hatred. Boom! They joined forces and rushed forward again. Every one of them was like a madman. Clearly, they were stimulated by the attack just now. Do you really think that I only have this wisp of order flame? At this moment, Lin Sun, who was in the center of the whirlpool, finally raised his eyes. His eyes were like a bottomless abyss that could devour and dominate everything. There was a hint of mockery in them. Rumble. The abyssal sword cauldron tilted, and a wisp of nirvana flame shot out again. It was like a thin, pitch-black lightning bolt that looked inconspicuous. But when it appeared in the world, it was like a fire god descending to the world. It brought with it an unbelievably terrifying, incinerating power that set off monstrous waves in the void. In front of this power, all Dharma's spells and divine abilities were like ants, unable to withstand a single blow. There's more? Damn it, open for me. Amidst the furious roars, the three Emperor ancestors suppressed the shock in their hearts and pushed their cultivation and strength to the limit. Turbulence slammed into the air, lightning fell like rain, and treasure light flowed. Even a void seemed to be cracked. The entire world seemed to be boiling into chaos. However, in front of the nirvana flame of order, everything was like paper. Boom! The star-studded scepter in Luo Shintu's hand was directly incinerated, turning into ashes in the blink of an eye. She screamed because her clothes were also incinerated. In this extremely dangerous moment, her primordial spirit immediately fled, wanting to avoid it. But at this moment, Lin Sun had already rushed over. Clang! The sharp abyssal Dao sword seemed to be forged from indestructible divine metal as it slashed through the air. Pooh! Luo Shantu's origin spirit was split into two from the middle. After that, it was engulfed by the terrifying torrent of sword chi. An ancestor who was just a hair away from touching the path of the undying Dao actually had his body incinerated by the nirvana flame of order. His origin spirit was directly destroyed. Screams of shock and anger rang out. Everyone felt as though they had gone crazy. But at this moment, one Taolu and Horizontal Prefecture couldn't even take care of themselves. That strand of nirvana flame of order spread out like maggots on bones. When Luo Shantu was being slaughtered, they also suffered heavy injuries. It's just the nirvana flame of order. How can it be so powerful? When Taolu roared, completely panicking. It wasn't that he hadn't seen the nirvana flame of order before, but he had never seen such a tyrannical and bizarre one. It completely surpassed his imagination and knowledge. At this moment, he exhausted all his cultivation to resist the incinerating force. His eyebrows and hair were all burnt off, his skin cracked, and even the bronze halberd in his hand melted into liquid. He looked incomparably miserable. Swoosh! Lin Sun's figure flashed, instantly appearing behind Wen Taolu. Duo, Wen Taolu was indeed a Dao ancestor who had experienced the battlefield for a long time. Even though he was in danger, he managed to react in that instant and took out 12 bronze shields. Each bronze shield was imprinted with the power of a restriction, allowing them to withstand a full-powered attack from an Emperor ancestor. But how terrifying was Lin Sun's current strength? As he used the immeasurable bottle contained in the abyssal sword cauldron, the power of his attack suddenly multiplied. Kacha! The 12 bronze shields, which were imprinted with the power of the spirit formation's restriction, were broken from middle. As if they were rags that had been cut by a pair of scissors, they were cut open in the air. A trace of confusion appeared on Wen Taoyu's face. Then, a trace of blood appeared on his eyebrows. At first, the trace of blood was only on his eyebrows. Then it spread to his nose, chin, chest, and finally split into two halves in the air. A dignified Emperor ancestor was split into two by Lin Sun's sword. Boom! With the invasion of the nirvana flame of order, Wen Taoyu's cracked body was incinerated. Not even a trace of residue was left. How is this possible? No, this can't be true. In the distance, the cultivators of the three immortal emperor clans felt like they were going crazy at this moment. They were all in a state of confusion, unable to accept all this. This scene was indeed too terrifying and bloody. As soon as Luotian II died, when Taolu was killed, it happened in just a few blinks of an eye, which almost made people unable to react. And Xiang Xiaoyuan and Yu Duqiu, who originally planned to rescue Lin Sun at the critical moment, were stunned and in a trance. P.S. There's more tonight. Chapter 2597. A strand of order fire of Nirvana contained unimaginable destructive power, heavily injuring three emperor ancestors. This gave Lin Sun an opportunity to kill Luotian II and Wen Taolu. At the same time, Heng Xingzhou, who was also heavily injured, was completely terrified. He used all his strength and frenziedly circulated his cultivation, trying to dodge and escape. But how could Lin Sun give him a chance? After killing Wen Taolu, Lin Sun didn't hesitate and flashed forward. His silhouette completely fused with the abyssal sword cauldron and ruthlessly smashed down. Boom! The sky collapsed and the earth cracked. The sun and moon dimmed. Heng Xingzhou's body was already burnt to a crisp like a tattered rag. Facing such an attack, even if he resisted with all his strength, he couldn't endure it at all. His body in Yuan Shun directly exploded. The third emperor ancestor had fallen. From start to finish, only a short while had passed, and the three emperor ancestors died one after another. This terrifying scene was truly unbelievable. But if someone had seen how Heng Tianxua died back then, they wouldn't find it strange anymore. According to Qin Ke, the Order Fire of Nirvana was a terrifying power that could even threaten immortal existences. It was only natural for Lin Sun to kill a Dao ancestor. Run quickly. In the distance, the cultivators from the three immortal emperor clans were already scared out of their wits. They turned and wanted to escape. However, Lin Sun's speed was so fast that he left a faint white mark in the void, flickering like a stream of light. Pooh! 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 Almost in the blink of an eye, several cultivators were killed by Lin Sun. With his current cultivation, a casual strike from him had the power to suppress all in the same realm. He was incomparably domineering and could even fight against an emperor ancestor. How could ordinary great emperors be a match for him? Blood splattered everywhere. Screams filled the air. Those cultivators were completely panicking. Quickly activate the Grand Formation to stop him. Otherwise, none of us will be able to escape. Luo Ling shouted, her voice echoing throughout the area. Previously, when Lin Sun was fighting the three emperor ancestors, the cultivators from the three immortal emperor clans had already set up layers of restrictions in the surroundings. This was to prevent Lin Sun from escaping. But now, it had become their life-saving method. Buzz. Suddenly, layers of restriction formations emerged, covering the sky and the earth. Seeing that Lin Sun was blocked, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Valspawn, just you wait. Today's enmity will be repaid tenfold, 100-fold in the future. Those who offend my one clan will not have a good ending. Lin Sun, you're finished. These cultivators spoke resentfully, as if they were venting the rage and terror in their hearts. Do you really think you're safe? Lin Sun's dark eyes were deep. He snapped his fingers and said, Little Five. Boom! A dazzling rain of light appeared. The Tao of perishing heaven's formation suddenly appeared from all directions. The symbols were like a tide, and the Tao patterns circulated. The moment this formation appeared, it not only enveloped the experts from the three great immortal emperor clans, but also enveloped the grand formations that were obstructing Lin Sun. Like a canopy, it completely covered the entire area. Seeing this scene from afar, Xiang Xiaoyuan and Yu Duqiu could not help but feel dumbfounded. All of this was completely beyond their imagination. In fact, a few days ago, Lin Sun was worried that the four progenitor realm evil spirits that had escaped would come back for revenge, so he immediately asked Little Five to set up the Tao of perishing heaven's formation. It was originally to defend against those evil spirits. But now, he had accidentally put to good use. No, how could this be? The cultivators who had been clamoring with resentment and thought that Lin Sun would not be able to chase after them were all dumbfounded. Who would have thought that in the blink of an eye, they would also be trapped in the Grand Formation? At this moment, they were so scared that their souls left their bodies. They were seething with anger, and their guts were about to burst. "Break the formation, quick!" Someone roared and attacked crazily. The others also did their best. In fact, with the strength of these great emperors, they really had the ability to break the Tao of perishing heaven's formation. After all, this formation could only trap Realm 9 ancestors. But unfortunately, Lin Sun would not give them another chance. "It's useless. You can't escape in front of me." Lin Sun's figure flashed. Instantly, the void was torn apart, and white marks pierced through the sky. With unparalleled power, he was instantly sucked into the formation and began a massacre. Boom! A Realm 9 ancestor only had time to let out a scream before he was smashed into pieces by Lin Sun along with his protective treasure. Even his divine soul was completely crushed. "Let's attack together. Kill him, kill him." Seeing Lin Sun kill his way in, the cultivators in the Grand Formation were immediately greatly stimulated. They launched a desperate counterattack and rushed towards Lin Sun one after another. Some even had the thought of destroying themselves together with Lin Sun. Unfortunately, their attacks did not hurt Lin Sun at all. His cultivation was extremely strong, and coupled with the indestructible defensive power of the Abyssal Sword Cauldron, he seemed to be invincible. Along with Lin Sun's attack and slaughter, there was constantly blood splashing, treasures exploding, and screams before death resounding. In fact, now only the one Tao ancestor will be treated seriously by Lin Sun. Very few people below the one Tao ancestor could be taken seriously by Lin Sun. Outside the Grand Formation, Xiang Xiaoyuan and Yu Duqiu could only hear a burst of screams. They couldn't help but shudder with fear because of this, and they realized that a bloody slaughter was being carried out within the Grand Formation. But just a moment later, all the sounds stopped abruptly. There were no more roars, screams, or the sound of power fluctuations. It was so quiet that the two of them could not adapt to it. "Is it over?" Yu Duqiu could not help but ask. "It seems so." Xiang Xiaoyuan could not be sure. Then, they saw Lin Sun's figure walk out of the Grand Formation. His black hair was loose, and his clothes were neat and clean. However, a strand of overbearing, killing intent that was fierce to the point it caused one's heart to tremble still remained on its body, and it was like the god of death of legend was walking over from afar. Behind him, the Grand Formation dissipated silently and returned to silence. In that world, there was a thick smell of blood spreading like a fog. The blood-red background and the solitary, otherworldly figure outlined a shocking scene. This scene also became an unforgettable mark for Xiang Xiaoyuan and Yu Duqiu. They would not be able to forget it for a long time. "Don't just stand there. It's time to go." Lin Sun's teasing voice woke Xiang Xiaoyuan and Yu Duqiu from their daze. "Is it over?" Although Yu Duqiu had already guessed it and was sure, he could not help but ask. "It's over," Lin Sun said. Except for Luo Ling, who was captured and suppressed by him, the others were all killed. No one was left alive. Yu Duqiu's eyes became erratic again. The three insufferably arrogant emperor ancestors, dozens of tyrannical emperor realm experts from the three immortal emperor clans. Previously, they came in a threatening manner, but now they were all annihilated. If this was spread out, who in the boundless world would dare to believe it? Who in the eternal world would think it was true? Yu Duqiu only had one feeling at this moment: dumbfounded. Previously, Brother Yu and I planned to help you at the critical moment and open a path for you. But now, it seems that there is no place for us to intervene. Xiang Xiaoyuan was much calmer. There was a hint of guilt in her voice, as if she was very apologetic for not being able to help. "Yes, from the moment we entered this forbidden area until now, the two of us have not done anything. But now we have to sit back and enjoy the fruits of others' labor. We can't get over it," Yu Duqiu said embarrassedly. Lin Sun smiled and said, "Your kind intentions are worth more than 1,000 words to me. You don't have to be so polite. If there's a chance in the future, let's drink to our heart's content." From a moment the two of them did not choose to retreat in the face of danger. Lin Sun had already regarded them as friends. He did not care about these things, because he knew very well how much pressure he would have to bear if he chose to fight against the three immortal emperor clans. Xiang Xiaoyuan and Yu Duqiu did not let him down. Next, Lin Sun cleaned up the spoils of war and left in a hurry with the two of them. After walking out of the forbidden area, the three of them reappeared outside the huge mountain. "What's going on?" Lin Sun and the others immediately noticed that something was different. The heavens and the earth were surging with an indescribably dense, baleful aura, and it was filled with the smell of blood. This caused them to feel uneasy. A shrill cry suddenly resounded from extremely far away in the sky. When they looked through the layers of baleful aura, they saw an expert that was obviously at the 9th stage of the martial ancestor realm being besieged by a group of evil spirits that were suffused with terrifying baleful aura. His body instantly exploded into pieces, and it was like a scarlet red firework that bloomed in the sky. Lin Sun and the others' pupils constricted, and their divine senses swept out. They saw numerous cultivators transforming into rays of light and teleporting through the boundless heavens and the earth. They were fighting to be the first to flee this world. When looked at from the ground, it was like countless rays of light were charging into the sky from different areas, and it was a rather magnificent sight. However, they were only halfway through when they were intercepted by group after group of evil spirits that had appeared out of nowhere. Every single one of them possessed the might of an Emperor Realm expert. Some of the stronger ones even possessed strength that wasn't inferior to a martial ancestor realm expert. Rumble. Terrifying fluctuations of battle surged in the sky. There was slaughter everywhere, a bloody and tragic scene everywhere. From time to time, there would be shrill screams piercing through the sky. It was extremely horrifying. It was as if the entire relic of the Great Path was in turmoil, and the cultivators who participated in the trial were fleeing desperately, trying to leave this place. Could it be that the devil sealed in the ancient well is about to come out? Yu Duqiu gasped. It's hard to say, but it's certain that the disaster has already broken out. If we want to leave at this time, we must kill our way out, Xiang Xiaoyuan frowned. She thought of Lin Sun's previous analysis and inference, and she had a bad feeling. Indeed, we must leave as soon as possible. Otherwise, the situation will only become more and more serious. Lin Sun's black eyes surged with a cold luster, and his face became much more dignified. The worst situation might have already happened. The relic of the Great Path had undergone a drastic change, and it was destined to become a land of disaster. We must kill our way out. Otherwise, it was very likely that we would never be able to leave. P.S. That's all for today. After sitting for a day, I just recovered from my fever, and my physical strength really can't bear it anymore. 8 chapters is not a lot, but it's definitely not a little. I'll fulfill my promise, and I hope everyone has a good time. Tomorrow, Goldfish will publish an article on the public account to explain the relationship between Rune Emperor and Tianjiao War. Those who are interested can use it. Just add me as your follower. It will be published at 10 a.m. tomorrow. It's okay if you're not interested. It won't affect reading Tianjiao. Chapter 2598. You're finally out? I've been waiting for you for a long time. However, before Lin Sun and the others could take action, an icy cold shout came from the dense mist in the distance. The voice was like a thunderclap that resounded throughout the world. Instantly, a group of powerful evil spirits rushed over from afar. Their auras were shocking, and they transformed into a torrent that rumbled as they swept through the void. They were led by more than a dozen progenitor realm evil spirits. Behind them was an army of hundreds and thousands of emperor evil spirits. As soon as they appeared, they blotted out the sky and covered the earth, and they surrounded the huge mountain ridge where Lin Sun and the others were. These damn things have their eyes on me. Lin Sun frowned. How could he not know that this army of powerful evil spirits had obviously been lying in ambush nearby? However, the scale shocked him. Who could believe that there were so many evil spirits in the ruins of the Great Path? According to the information he'd obtained before, although Emperor evil spirits were common in the ruins of the Great Path, their numbers were absolutely not large. In the trials of the past, many cultivators had even fought each other in order to hunt and kill Emperor evil spirits. The reason was that there weren't enough Emperor evil spirits to go around. But now, it wasn't just the distant sky that was filled with countless evil spirits. They were blocking the cultivators that were trying to escape the ruins of the Great Path. There was even an army of shocking size and number that had come just for him. How many evil spirits are hidden in the ruins of the Great Path? A question surged into Lin Sun's mind. Xiang Xiaoyuan and Yu Duqiu's expressions changed as well. They noticed the abnormality of the situation. The size of the evil spirit army caused their scalps to go numb. There were more than a dozen progenitor realm evil spirits. How could they fight them? Just follow behind me. Lin Sun made a decision at the first possible moment. He decided to kill his way out of the encirclement. He couldn't delay any longer. Lin Sun, so long as you hand over the seal of the era, the Emperor promises to let you live. Amidst a tremendous roar, an ancestor realm evil spirit that was like 1,000 zhang tall giant appeared. Its tendons were like dragons and snakes winding around its body, bulging up high, strong and powerful. Its hair was messy like weeds, its eyes like copper bells, moreover shooting out cold beams of light. He opened his mouth and let out a roar. The void was directly shattered by the roar. Murderous aura surged from his body and surged into the sky. This was an extremely terrifying evil spirit, a well-known figure in the ancestor realm. At this moment, he led the evil spirit army over in an overbearing manner. His eyes swept over like two sharp blades that tore through the sky. Epic Seal, Xiang Xiaoyuan, and Yu Duqiu were stunned. How can my life and death be decided by some bullsh *T Emperor? Sure. Let's go. Lin Sun sneered as he soared into the sky, and then he withdrew the abyssal sword cauldron. A myriad of strands of light flowed on it, and the fortune jade disc that was jade white like snow appeared in his right palm. Boom! He did not charge forward. Instead, he shot straight up into the sky. Xiang Xiaoyuan and Yu Duqiu did not dare to delay. They took out their treasures and chased after them. Kill them. The 10,000-meter-tall giant rushed over with large strides. He carried a giant axe and chopped down like a galaxy. The blade of the axe was dazzling with blood-red light. Immediately after, more than a dozen ancestor realm evil spirits nearby also attacked. Giant divine spears, dazzling long sabers, divine hammers with purple lightning coiling around them. All kinds of terrifying weapons and powers fell together and attacked fiercely towards Lin Sun. Break! Lin Sun let out a light shout and did not dodge. He raised the fortune jade disc in his palm and rushed forward. Crack! Cracks appeared on the giant axe that flickered with cold light. Then it suddenly exploded and collapsed in the sky. The movement of the 10,000-meter-tall giant also became sluggish. It had suffered a strong impact. Boom! Lin Sun attacked powerfully. At this moment, he did not hold back and rush forward. A shocking disaster might descend. He did not want to be trapped in this relic of the Great Path. At this moment, he operated the way of the netherworld. It was as if there was nothing he could not overcome. With the abyssal sword cauldron's defense, he was not afraid of any attacks at all. And under the attack of the fortune jade disc, the sharp spears that were more than a dozen meters long, the dazzling long sabers, and the purple lightning hammer were all blasted away. It was tyrannical and overbearing. It was as if it was unstoppable. This was different from when Taolu, Rampage, and Luo Shintu's slaughter. The way of a netherworld that Lin Sun had mastered was a natural counter to these evil spirits. And the fortune jade disc was a great killing weapon. It could refine and devour the power of the evil spirits. When the two worked together, the power that erupted was enough to give Lin Sun an absolute advantage in battle. Boom! Lin Sun punched out. The incomparably surging fist force weighed more than 1,000,000,000,000 kilograms. It was wrapped in the power of the Fortune Jade Disc, and it burst forth with unimaginable lethality. In an instant, a progenitor evil spirit was killed. His treasures were turned into powder. Before his broken body could dissipate, it was refined by the Fortune Jade Disc. It was like a whale swallowing water, leaving not a single drop behind. The 10,000-meter-tall giant was shocked. This was a human that was even more ferocious than the evil spirits. He controlled the way of the netherworld and used the seal of the era. He was simply their nemesis. Kill. Let's attack together. We must not let him escape. The 10,000-meter-tall giant's roar shook the sky. This was the order given by the emperor in the depths of the ancient well. Even if they died, they did not dare to disobey, let alone retreat in battle. Rumble. The figures of emperor-rank evil spirits were like dark clouds that pressed down on the heavens and the earth from all directions, and they obstructed Lin Sun's path. Unlike progenitor evil spirits, these emperor-rank evil spirits didn't possess intelligence or consciousness, and they only possessed the instinct to slaughter and battle. They didn't know what life and death were at all, so they were naturally unafraid of death. For a time, Lin Sun seemed as if he'd fallen into a vast ocean formed by his enemies, and he was surrounded by dense figures from all directions. Unfortunately, even though these emperor-rank evil spirits were enormous in number, they couldn't pose any threat to Lin Sun at all. Even if they charged over fearlessly, it was no different than an ant trying to shake a tree. Kill. Suddenly, Lin Sun's figure transformed into a swift and dazzling ray of light. He and the abyssal sword cauldron charged up explosively with the rumbling of enormous waves, traversed the 9 heavens, and suddenly smashed into the army of evil spirits. He was like a divine mountain rampaging about, and he crushed countless emperor-rank evil spirits along the way. Numerous severed limbs flew in all directions, and blood flowed in all directions. A long trail of blood was drawn out in the entire sky. If it weren't for Xiang Xiaoyuan and Yu Duchio's quick reactions, they would have almost been unable to keep up with Lin Sun's speed of slaughter. From a distance, one could see that the army of evil spirits that was like a black cloud was forcefully torn open by a dazzling ray of light, and a bloody crack spread through the void. It was a rather spectacular scene. So strong. Who's that? It seems to be Lin Sun from the Starry Ancient Path. So it's him. No wonder he's so tyrannical and peerless. This scene also shocked the cultivators who were fighting in other areas and trying to kill their way out of the ruins of the Great Path. Stop them quickly. Seeing that Lin Sun and the others were about to kill their way out of the encirclement, the giant roared furiously and charged over. You're overestimating yourself. A cold light flashed in Lin Sun's black eyes, and he raised the jade plate of fate and smashed it out fiercely. Rumble. The 3,000-meter-tall giant roared in pain. His opponent's strength was simply like crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. The moment the giant arrived, it had broken through all of its defenses, and its enormous body was smashed apart. Immediately after, his arms that were like mountains shattered, and then his torso legs. In the blink of an eye, the jade plate of fate had completely refined and devoured the giant. Kill. Behind the giant were more than 10 ancestor realm evil spirits, and all of them were powerful and ferocious. It could be said that none of them were easy to deal with. All of them were powerful, and they pounced at Lin Sun and the others with surging killing intent. Kill. Lin Sun shouted, and he led Xiang Xiaoyuan and Yu Duchio to charge forward and launch a fatal attack. The situation was critical. Once the momentum of the attack stopped for a moment, countless Emperor Realm evil spirits would rush over to obstruct them, and they had to be dealt with as soon as possible. Moo! A skeletal giant beast covered in blood-red fur roared, but its body was smashed by the jade plate of fate to the point of exploding continuously in the battle with Lin Sun. In the end, it suffered a grievance, and its powerful body was shattered and devoured. Pooh! Next, Lin Sun launched a series of heavy attacks. The way of the netherworld was operated to the extreme, and various terrifying scenes of the netherworld emerged and killed a nine-headed beast. Feathers fluttered and blood splattered in all directions. Before it could dissipate, it was refined by the jade plate of fate. This treasure was extremely miraculous. Even though it wouldn't take the initiative to suppress and refine evil spirits like it did in the past, it was like an invincible divine artifact in Lin Sun's hands. In next to no time, this expanse of space had become a battlefield. Xiang Xiaoyuan and Yu Duqiu were attacking with all their strength as well. However, their opponents were those Emperor Realm evil spirits, so they shared a lot of Lin Sun's energy and allowed him to concentrate on dealing with those Ancestor Realm evil spirits. In merely a short moment, over 10 Ancestor Realm evil spirits were slaughtered. That ferocious and domineering accomplishment caused many cultivators in the other areas to exclaim in shock and disbelief. There were also some cultivators who seized the opportunity to approach Lin Sun and shout loudly, "Don't panic, fellow Taoist Lin. We've come to help you. Everyone, let's go together and kill our way out of the encirclement with fellow Taoist Lin. Kill." Xiang Xiaoyuan and Yu Duqiu almost rolled their eyes when they saw this scene. How is this helping? He's clearly taking advantage of us. They could see that Lin Sun was like a hot knife cutting through butter, and killing Ancestor Realm evil spirits was as easy as flipping his hand. How could they not know that charging together with Lin Sun was the most promising way to escape this relic of the Great Path? Lin Sun paid no attention to all this. He charged forward bravely and forcefully opened up a bloody path in the army of evil spirits as he charged out of the sky. Suddenly, an obscure and inexplicable sound of chanting resounded. Lin Sun's heart palpitated and his hair stood on end. He felt a fatal sense of danger. However, the terrifying thing was that no matter how much he exerted his full strength, he was actually unable to stop the attack of the sound of chanting. On the contrary, his mind and soul suddenly felt a tearing pain, as if thousands of sharp blades were stabbing into him. In an instant, Lin Sun's figure staggered, and his face turned pale. "Leave the jade plate of fate behind, and I'll spare your life. Otherwise, I'll wipe out your spirit and devour your flesh and blood." An icy cold voice filled with great majesty suddenly exploded in Lin Sun's mind, and it shook him to the point that he almost lost control of his mind. Lin Sun's expression changed abruptly. He immediately judged that the one who attacked at this moment was probably King Shun, who was sealed in the depths of the ancient well. Chapter 2599. The chanting was obscure and could not be isolated. It constantly impacted Lin Sun's state of mind and soul like a tide. Lin Sun felt that his head was about to explode, and his face became paler. "Lin Sun, what's wrong with you?" Xiang Xiaoyuan and Yu Duqiu immediately noticed that something was wrong. Lin Sun, who was charging forward with irresistible force, was now swaying with a painful expression on his face. Both of them changed their expressions. This also proved that the chanting was only aimed at Lin Sun, and the others did not feel anything unusual. "It's okay." Lin Sun waved his hand and endured the sharp pain in his state of mind and spirit. He was about to continue rushing forward because he was about to rush out of the sky. But at this moment, the dignified and cold voice of Dishi sounded again. "Young man, you probably have guessed that I can't kill you directly because I'm trapped in the well of sealing demons. But do you really think you can escape like this?" Every word was like a divine hammer in the hands of God, smashing Lin Sun's state of mind. It should be known that Lin Sun's state of mind had long been tough to an incredible level, but at this time, it was about to crack and collapse. The turbulence of his state of mind affected his chi and cultivation. His figure swayed, and a group of Emperor evil spirits almost took advantage of this and killed him. Xiang Xiaoyuan and Yu Duqiu both realized that Lin Sun's situation was not good and immediately used their trump card to help Lin Sun resolve the attacks coming from all directions. "Hand over the jade plate of fate immediately." The voice of Dishi rumbled in Lin Sun's state of mind, as if he wanted to completely crush Lin Sun's state of mind. Lin Sun felt dizzy and his body trembled slightly. This was definitely the greatest danger he had encountered since he entered the boundless thousand battlefields. Just a voice from the enemy was enough to render him defenseless. Even with his cultivation and all his trump cards, he couldn't do anything about it. Kill! Lin Sun gritted his teeth, and with madness in his eyes, he began to kill. But his figure staggered, and his state of mind suffered a terrible impact again. Brother Lin, Xiang Xiaoyuan, and Yu Duqiu were shocked. The cultivator who clamored to come and help Lin Sun had long since noticed that the situation was bad, and he flashed towards the distance at the first possible moment. At the same time, countless evil spirits rushed in from all directions like locusts, completely filling the area where Lin Sun and his team were. Looking from afar, Lin Sun and the others could no longer be seen. What's the situation? Is Lin Sun going to suffer? His power must have aroused the vigilance of those evil spirits. They won't let him leave just like that. The cultivators who were slaughtering in different areas of the Great Path relic all gasped, because at this time, almost all the evil spirits scattered in this vast world rushed to where Lin Sun was, completely drowning the place. Come on, those evil spirits are going to deal with Lin Sun. This is our chance to break out of the encirclement together. Some of the cultivators shouted, "Go!" Undoubtedly, this was the best time for them to escape. Lin Sun alone attracted most of the evil spirits, so they could leave as soon as possible without any obstacles. So. A rain of divine rainbows swept across the sky and disappeared beyond the sky. No one cared about Lin Sun's life or death. Being able to survive at this time was undoubtedly the most important thing for these cultivators who participated in the trial. What should we do? Xiang Xiaoyuan and Yu Duqiu were anxious. The seriousness of the situation was completely beyond their imagination. Looking at the dense army of evil spirits, they all felt a kind of despair. However, even under such circumstances, the two were still fighting desperately to help Lin Sun resolve the attacks coming from all directions. However, Lin Sun's situation did not improve at all. The power of the evil god Dishi was too strange and overbearing. The constant chanting of sutras had severely damaged Lin Sun's soul and state of mind. It was no exaggeration to say that it was a miracle that Lin Sun could hold on until now, because his mind was extremely strong and tenacious. If it were other cultivators in the same realm, they would not have been able to hold on until now. Their minds would have been shattered, and they would have turned into corpses. It really surprises me that the power of mind can be tempered to such a level. Unfortunately, you can't escape. The cold voice of the evil god, Dishi, sounded. This sentence was like endless thunder, smashing down fiercely, trying to shatter Lin Sun's state of mind. At this moment, what are you crying for? Is there an end to it? Can't you let me sleep? Suddenly, a shout full of incomparable anger sounded in Lin Sun's state of mind. Like a shrew cursing in the street, he was furious and furious. Boom! In Lin Sun's mind, the constant impact of the chanting of sutras stopped abruptly, and the strange and overbearing power was swept away fiercely. Who are you? How dare you intervene in my affairs? The voice of the evil god, Dishi, sounded with a trace of surprise. Grandson, I am your ancestor. The irritated and angry voice scolded loudly, with a simple and crude sense of humiliation. But it was such a vulgar curse that shattered the power of the evil god Dishi and disappeared in Lin Sun's mind. Lin Sun suddenly woke up from the state of collapse, and his whole body was extremely relaxed. As a descendant of the Mind Mountain, I should be bullied like this. It's so annoying. The angry voice sounded in Lin Sun's heart. Junior brother, I'll make an exception and break my oath this time. I, Ling Xuanzi, will feel ashamed if I don't beat the crap out of this bastard. Boom! The next moment, Lin Sun's body shook, and a figure swept out of the Tower of Endless. Dressed in cyan, he was as handsome as a young man, with his black hair tied behind his head at will. He was handsome and elegant. It was Ling Xuanzi, the fourth descendant of the Mind Mountain. However, his delicate and handsome face was filled with fury at this moment. His eyes were surging with flames of fury. Lin Sun was surprised. Ling Xuanzi, the fourth senior brother, was suppressed in the Tower of Endless. How could he break the suppression and walk out at will? Don't worry, the bet between you and me is still the same. But now, it's to save some face of the Mind Mountain. I can be suppressed, but the face of the Mind Mountain can't be lost. Ling Xuanzi, who was in anger, rubbed his eyebrows fiercely, and his eyes were full of murderous intent. Boom! A terrifying and boundless power suddenly emerged from his body, and it rushed into the sky as if he had turned into a ruler in an instant. The dense army of emperor-level evil spirits in the vicinity suddenly melted like snow being burned by the scorching sun. Xiang Xiaoyuan and Yu Duqiu were dumbfounded by that terrifying power. Who is this person? Wait for me to come back. Ling Xuanzi stretched out his hand, and the 3,000 floating sinks appeared in his palm. Then, his figure flashed and turned into a dazzling light, rushing into the depths of the relic. Lin Sun's expression flickered indeterminately. When he was in the ultimate all those years ago, he was clearly aware that this fourth senior brother was extremely terrifying and was regarded as one of the greatest throughout the ages. Even though he had been suppressed for countless years, his cultivation had already attained an unbelievable level. The reason he was able to suppress Ling Xuanzi was none other than because he defeated Ling Xuanzi in the 5 rounds of the Tao discussion. That was why Ling Xuanzi admitted defeat and took the initiative to enter the Tower of Endless. Moreover, for the sake of fairness, Ling Xuanzi had suppressed his cultivation during the 5 rounds of the Tao discussion. Otherwise, Lin Sun knew that he would definitely not be a match for this fourth senior brother. To put it simply, besides his bad intentions, Ling Xuanzi was undoubtedly one of the most outstanding disciples of the Mind Mountain. Just like before, this fellow just cursed a few times and swept away the chanting of scriptures and crushed the power of evil god Dishi. Moreover, he had directly walked out of the suppression of the Tower of Endless and charged angrily towards evil god Dishi. All of this was sufficient to prove how formidable Ling Xuanzi was. Brother Lin, this is? Yu Duqiu's voice was a little stuttering. He felt as if his tongue was tied. He was completely amazed by the unparalleled ferocity of Ling Xuanzi. Xiang Xiaoyuan's starry eyes were also filled with astonishment. Too strong. Just by releasing his power, he dispersed the army of evil spirits in all directions, causing more than half of them to be injured or killed. This was simply like the descent of a god. My senior brother's Taoist name is Ling Xuanzi, Lin Sun said casually. Lin Sun said casually. He was trying hard to calm himself down. He had just experienced an extremely dangerous and fatal blow, which made him agitated. Xiang Xiaoyuan and Yu Duqiu were dumbfounded. Isn't this the fake name you used? Lin Sun said, my senior brother is not famous. I merely used his name. It's not offensive. What he said was the truth. Back then, Ling Xuanzi was suppressed by the Mind Mountain before he could shine on the starry sky ancient path. It could be said that very few people knew him, not to mention that this was the boundless 1,000 battle domain, so it was almost impossible for anyone to know this name. Should we leave here first? Xiang Xiaoyuan couldn't help but ask. There were still many emperor-level evil spirits nearby. They had no intelligence and were not afraid of death at all. Although a large number of them were killed by Ling Xuanzi's power just now, they rushed over again. Okay, Lin Sun agreed and immediately began the slaughter. At the same time, in a dark and oppressive forbidden area, Ling Xuanzi's figure was dazzling like a ray of light, tearing the darkness of the world and rushing straight towards the ancient well in the deepest part of the forbidden area. He was filled with undisguised ruthlessness, and his handsome face was filled with anger. Waves of obscure chanting suddenly resounded in the forbidden area like a landslide and a tsunami. The power was many times stronger than what Lin Sun had suffered before. Grandson, your ancestor is here. How dare you bark? Ling Xuanzi flew into a rage and suddenly pressed his palm out. Boom! Countless golden bolts of lightning that were thick like waterfalls of stars surged into appearance in the heavens and the earth, and they poured down in a dense manner. The rumbling and rumbling emanated might that could obliterate the heavens and the earth. In an instant, the chanting was drowned out by the roar of thunder and collapsed. Swish! On the other hand, Ling Xuanzi's figure was like a peerlessly dazzling divine light that rumbled as it descended before the ancient well, and it shook the ground to the point of trembling while the nearby space suddenly collapsed and exploded apart, and it seemed to be unable to endure the terrifying might emanated by him. P.S. Let Four Senior Brother take a breather.